a general rate how the class would perform.
Yeah, perfect.
So we'll start off at the top left and then work across the row and then down to second row, and then finally the last thing we'll do is the prot warrior. Um, with that being the case, we're gonna have Blood DK first. Uh, Druid, if you want to take the helm, and then I'll kind of jump on what you say, and we'll go through them.
Okay, cool. Before we begin here with Blood DK, I'm just gonna say, the War Within is still fairly new. We're early in the first season of the expansion. There's not been like thorough testing with every single spec, to the extent of like what we had in Dragonflight. So certain specs may lack, like I guess, they may lack experience within this expansion for me to confidently say, hey, oh, like I've rated 17 times on Mistweaver Monk or I don't know, like Rogue, so I know it's this good or that bad. So bear that in mind. That's the case throughout all 30's content right now. Um, so yeah, I'll start with Blood DK. So tanks got nerfed in the terms of their self sustainability going into the war. Then they were nerfed. Blood DK was already lacking in terms of its toolkit at level 30 due to the talents it's missing. It was okay in Dragonflight, and when I say okay, I'm saying in comparison to the other tanks. It was decent. Now it's even worse. So it had the problem of missing talents that make it really good at max level, for example. But then tanks also got a nerf, so it's just pretty bad, to be honest with you. I know there are people who might be watching this and they'll think, I made it work with Bone Reaver's Edge and Dancing Rune Weapon. I can get like 80-90% parry. There are niche situations where Blood DK is the best tank, like Patchwork. I think I would rather take Blood DK for Patchwork because they'll parry more of the attacks that Patchwork does than like other tanks would mitigate. So there's exceptions like that. And of course they have AMS, they have anti magic shell, anti magic zone. They can get out stuns, so they have like weird situational use where you might prefer it. But generally speaking, I would put it as D tier. In terms of its self healing, see Death Strike. If you know how it works on the amount of damage you've taken in the past 5 seconds. You heal that if you use Death Strike within that 5 second window. So if I take 1k damage, I'll heal a percentage of that damage. Sorry, if I take 1k damage, I'll heal for a percentage based on that damage taken within the 5 second window. How it used to work was you would press Death Strike. Let's say I got hit for 10k. I could spam Death Strike now for the next 5 seconds and heal for a percentage based on that 10k hit. What they changed now is that if I get hit for 10k and I press Death Strike, I'm only going to heal for the amount of that 10k once. So I press Death Strike, let's say I heal for 5k. Unlike in Dragonflight where I could just go 5k, 5k, 5k by spamming Death Strike, it's now going to be 5k and then 1k and then 600 or whatever because I've now healed that damage I've taken. So it's really bad. So I would just put it on low D tier, to be honest with you. And its damage is not that great either compared to other tanks. Like, it's okay in AoE situations. Like, you can spam Blood Boil, it's pretty decent, but there are other tanks that do way better job. So, low D tier, Duty. Low D tier.
So D tier from you.
Yep.
Okay. I know sometimes you play healer. As someone who almost only plays healer, my perspective might be a little bit different. Blood DK doesn't have bad parry, like you said. It kind of helps them mitigate some of that damage. Toolkit you already went over. I think the strongest thing about a Blood DK over anything else is the ability to basically act as somewhat of its own healer. If you have a Blood DK and a healer, you technically have two healers. Especially if I have a raid or a Herald of the Titans that is taking a lot of AoE damage, it gives me a chance to more focus on dealing with keeping people alive during the comet smash and whatnot, rather than actually having to focus on strictly healing the tank. The downside with that is I say but the Blood DK, whenever it takes damage, it tends to be a little more than a typical tank. As for what I think, I would put it high C tier, not down in D tier. It's not terrible, but it's also, there's other classes that can do what it does just better. Um, how do you want to break this down. Do you want to reconsider, or do you think I should reconsider?
I will reconsider on one point because I didn't actually think about this. So if you don't know, at level 30, healers have a very big issue, which is out of the control of overhealing. So typically, let's say on a 10-minute fight, a healer would, he'll do his rotation, keep everyone alive, whatever. And then after the fight, on like a log, 80% of his healing, for example, is like overhealing. And that's not his fault. Like, it's just, we have a lot of like, our heals are extremely overpowered. Like, if I have 7k health, a shaman's healing surge can create up to 10k if you have like close to best in slot gear. So there's gonna be overhealing. Good thing about Blood DK is because it's taking a lot more damage than the other tanks based on how it works. Uh, there's less overhealing, and it actually gives more. There's a perspective. It can be It could be better to play Blood DK in terms if you're looking to have more fun because it will give the healer some more stuff to do. Like if I'm playing a Brewmaster Monk, I don't need any healing at all. So it's kind of boring from the healer's POV because their raids are already kind of, depending on which raid you do, kind of easy, and there's not much healing to do like compared to like max level stuff where there's like a constant amount of raid damage coming out. So I think yeah, Blood DK can be more fun to play with if you're looking for more things to do as a healer. Um, yeah, I mean, why not? But we can put it in C tier for sure. I think that definitely works.
One last thing I'll add to before we go to Frost spec about blood, and we'll move on, is I've always found when healing a tank, whenever their health gets low, you kind of go into like panic heal mode. For blood DKs, them and paladins are the only two classes I really don't worry about panic healing.
That works. Perfect.
So we'll move down next to Frost DK. Frost DK is a DPS spec. DruidMan, do you want to give your insight on it?
Yep. Just give me one moment here. Just making sure the stream is. I think we're good. I think it was lagging for a second. Okay, cool. So Frost DK, unfortunately, is really not good. As someone who has shadowed more than my Frost DK, two-handed Frost DK is just not where it's supposed to be. It's lacking too many talents. Like the same problem, I guess, that level 30 Blood DK has. So you have to dual wield on the Frost DK, and even when you do dual wield, it's mediocre. Like it's honestly, I would say it's even worse than Assassination Rogue, and everyone memes about Rogue being not great for like rating and damage and so on. I would put that as low D tier. I mean, I'm not gonna go into its utility because it's the exact same utility as the Blood DK. I will say that AoE, it doesn't even have strong AoE. It has like Howling Blast doesn't do that much AoE, and it has one other button called Remorseless Winter, doesn't do that much at level 30 at least without talents. It's pretty bland, honestly. It's not even fun in my opinion. I think it's one of the more boring specs. It's also not great. There's only one upside to DK other than Blood. Death Strike heals a metric fuck ton more when you're playing Unholy or Frost. It can heal for 40% of the damage taken within the 5-second window. So there are weird situations where if you're trying to solo content, like solo a dungeon, you could do it as a Frost DK or an Unholy DK because Death Strike would keep you alive. But other than that, it's pretty garbage, dude. I would put that F tier if we don't have one, but low D tier then. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Frost DK has never been something that has been an outlier of incredible. The one thing too I'll say about Frost DK that if we had an F tier probably would be high F tier, low D tier, is that if DKs happen to spec into something like anti-magic zone, I think they still get that. I'm not sure if they get it at 30, but kits like that are able to help out the team. That kind of puts it a little higher in a general perspective. But if this was strictly about DPS, it would be near bottom of the barrel. So we're both in agreement that it's D tier.
Yeah, pretty much. Just D tier for sure.
All right. Next, we'll move on to Unholy DK.
Okay.
Jermaine, you want to go?
Yeah, so obviously same things we brushed upon with Blood and then Frost in terms of their toolkit. Don't need to mention that. Only benefit to Unholy is it slightly pulls ahead in terms of single target damage than Frost. It's still lacking a lot of its toolkit. I would put it in D tier, but above Frost DK because it has stronger AoE. It does have that benefit of having decent AoE. In comparison to every other class, it kind of sucks for AoE, but on its own basis, it's pretty decent compared to Frost. So I put it in D tier, but above Frost, for sure.
I think it's definitely a bit better DPS wise than what Frost can do. As for actual kit, what it can provide for a raid, I think it's about the same talents as what Frost can do. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yep.
All right. Next, I always get the wings messed up on these. Damn it, Blizzard. I believe this is a Vengeance Demon Hunter. This is the DPS spec.
No, that's Havoc. The one you're highlighting
That,
over is Havoc. Yeah.
okay, this is Havoc.
Yeah.
Got him. So newbie at Demon Hunter.
All good.
Go ahead and give your info on Havoc.
Okay, so Havoc only worked during two patches of its lifetime since we've had it at level 30, which I think it's been since Shadowlands, or maybe before. I just remember it. I think it was Shadowlands where you could level it to actual 30, because it used to start like level 90, 91 or something. So the only thing it's lacking to be actually really good is a talent that we used to have. It's a talent where when you I-beam, you go into metamorphosis, and you could do that every 40 seconds. That made it decent. Like you could back in Dragonflight, you could hold like above 2k DPS. It now needs one more level to get that talent, so it's pretty garbage for a single target. Its AoE is still really good. Like if you do a big pull, as long as you have the right gear, decent AoE still. In terms of toolkit, it doesn't have darkness, which is an AoE raid defensive cooldown. What else? It does have Netherwalk, which is like a mini bubble for those who don't play Demon Hunter. It's like it makes you immune to all damage and you move 100% faster. But then it's like a 3-minute cooldown, and yeah, I would say, to be honest with you, it's a hard one. I'm just trying to think. It does have a lot of movement utility. Like it's really fast, really agile, really mobile, really good in old content because it can like jump out of like bridges and do like weird skips with map stuff, like because all those old maps were not designed with Demon Hunter in mind. Honestly, I would say low C tier. Like I'm just trying to think if there's anything else with Havoc that I'm missing. It does have an AoE stun. It does have an AoE silence too, actually. Now that I'm just thinking about it, you can spec into Sigil of Silence. Sorry, I'm thinking of Vengeance. It has an AoE fear. So you can place a rune on the ground that AoE fears everything, but it breaks on damage. It also has Imprison, which can CC one mob, but it breaks on damage again. I would just say low C tier, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with low C tier. I always compare Demon Hunter to basically the same functionality as Rogue. Um, Obviously, Rogue has more CC, able to control the fight a bit more. The only thing that a Demon Hunter has above any other DPS class, and this is possibly now redundant with Evokers being a thing, but they've always had really good mobility. If there's ever something that's about to pop on the ground, you can quickly get out of the way and continue damage, whereas other classes may have to stop casting and move. That is a big plus, but other than that, it's not actually, there's nothing that's increasing your damage. So I do agree with you. It's going to be low C tier. Would you put it above the functionality of a Blood DK, or would you say that it should be below it?
Below it for sure. Blood DK definitely offers more to the raid. Yeah, I didn't mention this, but just quickly, it's not going to change the placement of DK, but they do have grips too. So, for like if you're doing content where there's casters and they need to be pulled in or interrupted, DKs can grip them in too. And they also have something called Blinding Seat, which can AoE like Disorient. So they're pretty good. But yeah, I put it below Blood DK for sure. Definitely below.
All right. Next is, you said this is Vengeance, right?
Yes, Vengeance. That's the tank one.
All right. Vengeance Demon Hunter. Go ahead, DruidMan.
Okay, so this one's actually pretty good. So they have an AoE on top of everything I've already mentioned about Havoc, in terms of their class utility. Vengeance also gets an AoE silence rune if you spec into it. So it can be really good for dungeons. Like I'm thinking if you're doing a dungeon where there's a lot of like really annoying CCs and debuffs and disorients, this can be really good to control the mobs. So they have that going for them. They're really tanky. They have decent self-healing. If you pull enough mobs and you spec into the right talents, you can keep yourself alive. Shouldn't have any issue there. It parries a fuck ton too, because Demon Spike gives a 15% chance to parry if you spec into it. Gives a bunch of armor too. Pretty sure you can almost reach armor cap too when you're in meta form with Demon Spikes up. So it's really strong. In terms of their damage, it's kind of mediocre. Like, I would say the damage is kind of low compared to other tanks. Maybe on par with like Blood DK, maybe a little higher if I'm being generous. But it's got really good ways of mitigating too. It's got at level 30 at least we take a talent called Soul Fragment. I believe that's what it's called. Soul Barrier actually. It gives you like a mini shield on demand. It's a 30-second cooldown. Can absorb like 6 or 7k if you use it correctly. They got Metamorphosis. They have 2 charges of Demon Spike on a like 15-second cooldown, or it's affected by haste. So I don't know what the cooldown would be for your Demon Hunter, but let me think. What else do they have? They also have a flat 10% damage reduction to magic when you have Immolation Aura up, if you spec into that. So I would say for this, pretty decent. I would just put it. I'm just thinking. The thing is, because like I don't know how to say A or B. Like it's really good, but I don't know if I should say A or
I would
B.
say high B, low A.
Yeah, high B, low A is where I'm inclining towards. Um, I would put it low A. Put it low A. It's
Low A?
decent. Yeah, low A.
Okay.
It's decent.
Just a correction, by the way, on our front. Someone in your chat said that Blinding Sleet is conal, not AoE.
That's correct. Sorry.
Does
Yeah.
that
If you're getting technical,
does
yes,
that
it is conal. So you have to similar to like Survival Hunter's Wildfire Bomb. It has to be in front of you, so you have to aim it properly. If you don't aim it properly, you don't disorient. But yeah, go ahead.
Gotcha. I agree with everything that you said about Demon Hunter, Tank Demon Hunter. It's always been something that if you can build it, not even perfectly, but just moderately well, it always performs pretty good. Again, the movement speed thing's real nice, but especially if I see somebody pop in a Metamorphosis, I basically put them in the back burner for the duration of that and don't really have to worry about them too much. It's like you said, damage isn't stellar, but I like them. So we're both in agreement. Low A.
Yeah, low A for sure.
Gotcha. All right. Next is druids. We're gonna be going on to balanced druid. Do you want to start off?
Yeah. So, um, here's the thing. Mine, in terms of all these specs here, my weakest ones are gonna be Pharaoh, Druid, and Boomkin because they did get at least for level 30. Pharaoh got quite a rework going into the war within. Boomkin got a lot of new talents as well. So I'm just gonna go off old memory from late Dragonflight and obviously whatever I've briefly tested or experimented with in the War Within. But this one, like, I'm not that confident in, so don't take this one as law for these two specific specs. But Boomkin got extremely good AOE. I mean, I'm not gonna say extremely good. It's got decent AOE. There are classes that can put them in the dumpster, but it's got very good consistent AOE. It's got great utility with just thinking, sorry. It's got Solar Beam, which is great for silence if you need that in certain situations. It's got Soothe, which can dispel enrage effects, which is great in like vanilla raid content for like molten core bosses. There's probably other content that I'm just not thinking of. It's like 6 a.m. here. It has Entangling Roots. It can off heal. Its regrowth can top someone. So it's like a good hybrid. Single target damage is pretty decent. Not bad, not great. Just in the middle. It's good. Let me think. What else does it have? It's got bark skin. Good thing about one thing I like about Boomkin is they're very agile as well. You can go into cat form. You can dash if you want. You can even spec into Stampeding Roar to give your raid a 60% movement speed. If you need that, you can even go into bear form and taunt a boss if necessary. So it's quite flexible. I would put this as low A tier, like because remember it's a general tier list, and thinking of all situations, it's pretty decent. Like it's never really bad to take a Boomkin. You never sigh when seeing a Boomkin, but you're never gonna be like super ecstatic about it either because it's not like the top end caster. But yeah, it's decent. It's definitely decent.
Would you put it above or below Havoc or Vengeance? Sorry,
Would I put it above or below? Below for sure. Below for sure.
below.
Keep in mind,
Um,
I'm not that confident in this one, so that one could be wrong. Like I could be missing something completely that I just wasn't aware of. But yeah, I would say lower than Vengeance for sure.
all right. My 2 cents. DPS has always been pretty all right. It's nothing to run home about. Functionality it brings is obviously what you mentioned. I like the Mark of the Wild. I like the rebirth that it gives. I like the fact that if need be, it could always self heal itself. That's something none of the DPS we've talked about have been able to do since. So if you have a healer down and that could make or break the difference. Obviously, we're looking at balance from a DPS perspective and overall functionality, but it is something that I consider with if I would be bringing it as opposed to something like a rogue or demon hunter or whatnot. So I agree. I think it's low A tier, and I'm pretty set on that. So we're both in agreement. Low A tier below the vengeance.
Yeah,
Got it.
definitely.
All right. Uh, this one, this one hurts me a bit. We used to have that really good feral druid in our guild, and that guy was nothing shy of just S tier. But we have to do this from a general perspective. So go ahead, druid man, send it off.
Sure. So similar toolkit to Boomkin in terms of the healing and being able to stampeding roll and so on. So I won't mention that again. I know Ferrodro's AOE can be really good. Um, it's like Boomkin. I think it's slightly below Boomkin on terms of AOE. Single target is definitely better than Boomkin, that's for sure. But it's nothing to run home about. Um, so I honestly, because in terms of it doesn't have solar beam too, so it's technically a little bit worse in terms of utility than Boomkin. I would say, where would I place this? It does have a single target stun, which you would take. You can take it as Boomkin too, but yeah, Feral I think might want to spec into it to get to their Feral stuff on the left talent tree, but they get a maim, so it's like a kidney shot for Feral. I want to say I would just put it high B tier. Like I don't think it's A. Like its strongest point in my view at least. And keep in mind, I did say I'm not confident with this one. I think would be its single target damage. I would just say high B. That's yeah, my POV, but I could be wrong, completely wrong, and I'm okay with that. So high B.
Gotcha. Um, my opinion on it is if we were doing something like just spamming dungeon heroics, I would more prefer to have a balanced druid just because you can pop an AoE effect, um, keep going and have damage being dealt. As for Feral, the single target I feel like is a stronger factor in terms of DPS. Obviously, it brings about the same kit as what a balanced druid does. Things like you said, like stampeding roar and whatnot. But I feel like that single target damage is what pushes it slightly. It's still behind a Vengeance Demon Hunter, but I feel like it is above balance in my opinion for A tier.
Above, yeah, because I just don't have enough experience in this expansion with those two, so I don't know to disagree. So I would say sure, put it side by side, Boomkin, but it's not enough information or experience as of this expansion for me to like comfortably say something about it. Why not? I mean, higher than Boomkin though, man. I mean, I think below Boomkin though. I'm being honest. Like you would always prefer Boomkin. Oh, and it does provide Mark of the Wild, something we didn't mention, which is a raid buff for 3% verse. It is
Oh, I
kind of
did
good.
mention that for Druid.
Yeah, and you can't get that through wall scrolls. Like if you're lacking a warrior, you get a war scroll for battle shout. You can't replace the 3% verse. So it's pretty decent. I would just say like next to Boomkin, low, yeah, on the right, perfect. How you got it right now? That works. Why not?
Gotcha. All right. Second last one for Druid. We're gonna be looking at Guardian. Go ahead, Druid man.
Guardian is really good. I would place this either low S tier or high A tier. Um, it's got incredible self healing. If you play it correctly, you shouldn't need a healer, depending on the fight, of course. Like if it's an extremely hard fight, you will need some heals, but most of the time, it doesn't need a healer. It has 2 charges of survival instincts. Which, fun fact, out of all the tanks, if in terms of tank buster defensive cooldowns, Guardian prevails. Like it has 2 charges of a 50% damage reduction. And you can even shorten its cooldown if you desperately needed to, which you don't need to, by the way, in most contexts. It has 2 charges of Frenzy Regen, which heals you for a percentage over a set flat time. Most of the time, it will heal you to full HP if you press it correctly. You also get a free regrowth every 10 seconds with Dream of Scenarios. There are conditions on how it works, but you pretty much proc every like 20 to 25 seconds. It's 20-second ICD, so And that regrowth will top you or anyone you choose to heal to full HP. You'll usually heal like 15k, 14k. And you can use that while in bear form when it procs. What else has it got? It's got bark skin on top of the 2 survival instincts. And then you can spam iron for if you pull enough rage and get armor cap. I would put it low S tier, actually thinking about it. Mark of the Wild, plus everything I've just mentioned, its self-healing capabilities. It's got incredible AoE damage too. You can get 3 stacks of thrash on everything. Obviously, I'm thinking it's not the best tank for AoE damage, but it's decent. And then what else? Let me think if there's anything I'm missing. For Guardian Druid, I think that's it at level 30 at least. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'd put it low S tier, high A tier for sure. One of those. It's got everything it needs kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. I would. I'll say what I would do, and then where I would put it, and then go from there. I would do low S tier. Guardian Druids have always been incredibly effective at being tanks. They are one of my favorite go-to tanks just throughout the history of playing level 30. They are one of the 2 tanks, and I'll mention the other one when we get to it. They are one of the 2 tanks that we have actually not been able to in the past kill bosses unless somebody swapped to a Guardian Druid, and we were able to then complete a fight. Guardian Druids have incredible kit. They are really good if something happens. You can quick use Stampeding Roar, get yourself away from the boss, top yourself off if you need to. They have things like Bark Skin. They can really take care of themselves. Really good mitigation, Frenzied Regeneration, like you said. It just Guardian Druids are absolutely S tier, and unless they get a substantial nerf, they will remain S tier, I believe, for this expansion. Are you good with low S tier?
Yep, definitely. One point I will add for Guardian Druids, the frenzy regeneration to be very specific on the naming. Its cooldown is reduced by haste, so stuff like Dragon Spine Trophy makes the cooldown like 12 seconds, no, 8 seconds actually. I think on my Boomkin, my Guardian Druid. So you can literally, if I think if you had a Jackhammer, which I don't have, so I haven't tested this, and you have a decent uptime on Jackhammer, whilst the Jackhammer's up, the cooldown reduction on Frenzy Regeneration could be so low that you could just keep it up 100% of the time. So it's pretty fucking insane. Like, definitely low S tier for sure, yeah.
All right. And then last one for Druids, we got Restoration Druids.
Oof.
Do you want to give your insight on it?
Yeah, so I would definitely put this on high S tier. It is by far in general, there are niches where other healers are better, but in general, it is by far the best healer at level 30. In more contexts than other healers. It is extremely overpowered with Valinir, and I don't know if I should go into how Valinir works. I guess I'll briefly mention upon it why it's so good.
If you can, just try to look at it from a general perspective. Just for how the class performs as is, if it just had general gear instead of one specific item pushing it.
Sure, okay. So in terms of its general use, it's still high S tier if played correctly. It gets even better with a legendary like Valinir. I won't go into why, but you can message me if you want to know why. It's got obviously everything else that the other druids have. Mark of the Wild, you can Stampeding Roar, you can also the benefit of Resto Druid that I like. If you want to min-max it, it is extremely fun. Like, you can keep Moonfire up, Sunfire up, you can even go into cat form and throw out bleeds on a boss. You can throw out AoE. Like the way I play my Resto Druid when I'm doing dungeons, I'm constantly throwing out Sunfires, going into cat form, spamming swipes. Tank might die to some unscaled damage or something that just kills him. I go into bear form, I taunt. It's extremely fast, it's extremely good. Can top someone instantly with 2 charges of Nature Swiftness. Even Swiftman can top someone. Incredible odds. Can even do Iron Bark if I desperately needed to take it, which I don't. It's got 3 charges of Trance, which is on a 20-second cooldown, which is just summoning a tree that's constantly healing your target. It's got by far the best AoE healing, so yeah, definitely high S tier for sure.
All right. My 2 cents on it is most healers are either shielding or trying to make up the health. Like if somebody takes damage, you're trying to heal that damage after the fact. Resto Druids are one of the top tier healers for me personally because it keeps, instead of catching up, it keeps up. You can put some hots on people and then kind of, for the most part, forget about them unless big time damage comes out. Really good kit. It's a druid, obviously Mark of the Wild, rebirth, stuff like that. I think I called it reincarnation on a previous. I think it was balance. I meant to say rebirth, but Resto Druid is absolutely S tier. One of the best healers. Are we good to put it above Guardian over here?
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
There we go. All right. Next we have Devastation Evoker.
I just realized we have preservation and devastation, but we're missing augmentation. I can't actually see it. Just to let you know. But we can fix that at the end.
Yeah, we'll put a little sticky note.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Shoot.
It's alright. We'll fix that at the end. We can take some time to quickly fix it. Okay, devastation evoker. Just to start off, it's incredibly good. I think it is one of the two only classes that can, if they want to, cast while moving. It has hover, basically pushes you forward with some momentum, gives you a small amount of movement speed. You can increase that with a talent too, and then you can just cast while moving. So that's extremely good for that. Um, it does have a raid buff, reducing the cooldown of everyone's movement speed, main movement speed ability, like heroic leap, dash, whatever your main movement and speed ability is, by 15%. So it's raid buff worthy, which is making it really good. One unique thing I like about Evoker in general, it is the only class that, besides Dwarf's Ratio, can dispel a bleed effect on a 1 minute cooldown. The reason why I mention this as being worthy to highlight is because there's a lot of content where there's stacking bleed effect debuffs that can be extremely nasty, and they last like, for whatever reason Blizzard had back then, they will last like a minute or 2 minutes. I really like Evoker for that, and that's all across all three specs. Devastation single target damage is S tier by far. It's up there with Shadow Priest, Destro Warlock, and there's one more class I'm missing. Yeah, it's up there with like top three competitors for single target damage. AoE is disgusting. I think it has by far, could be wrong, but at least when I was playing it, played it quite a bit. It by far has the best AoE burst damage. So if you pull like 100 mobs and you're only gonna last like 20 seconds, it can by far destroy every other class in the game. Doesn't have like great consistent AoE compared to everything else, because once it runs out of its main cooldowns like Deep Breath, Fire Breath, and then Dragon Rage, its DPS significantly goes down. But S tier single target damage, S tier AoE damage, I'll say. S tier utility, you can cast while moving, raid buff, dispel bleed effects. You also can get something called Verdant Embrace, which is on the class talent tree on the left side. It will basically give you a small amount of momentum and fly you to the target you target, and it will heal them. And if it crits, it will heal to full HP. I think even if it doesn't crit, depending on your spell power. So it's a nice way to top someone off with an instant, one button, no cast time, top someone off to full HP. It's on a short 15-second cooldown from what I remember. So decent there. Can also off heal with Living Flame. I can't correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I could be wrong. But I believe it also gets Emerald Blossom at level 30 as Devastation. Just can't remember if it's Preservation only. So it can throw out like an AOE heal. That doesn't scale too well, so I wouldn't even press that. But let me think. What else does it have? Yeah, I would put it S tier for sure. It's really good. It's really good.
All right. So I played a Devastation Evoker for the dungeon tournament. So if there's one DPS spec that I feel like I'm comfortable with talking about, it would definitely be this. It has incredible AoE effect. The single targets is incredible as well. Really, really solid. But mine wasn't even terribly geared. It wasn't, rank one geared, whatever you want to call it. I had, while we were moving, I would get procs for like a free, I think it was called Pyre, and I would just shoot Pyre and it would just deal AoE damage. And there were so many situations where moving around, we were able to just basically keep momentum. They are, I think they are as good, if not slightly better than Demon Hunter when it comes to momentum, being able to move around the battlefield. Really solid class. I don't know if it's just because of this expansion they came to 30 that they're overtuned, but they are, as it stands right now, incredible. Will we put it on the tier list above Resto Druid or below?
I'm just trying to think. Sorry.
Yeah, 'cause-
Yeah, that's the thing about tier list. It's kind of like, how do I know? I'll just say below Resto Druid. Um,
okay.
below
Like
Resto.
if you
Yeah, below
the way
Resto
that
Druid.
I look
Go ahead,
the
sorry.
way that I look at the tier list, I was hoping an ad wouldn't pop up. Let me get rid of this. The way that I look at this personally is the whole like if you had one spot left for a raid
Mm-hmm.
and you need a tank, a healer, or a DPS, which one would you pick? And if I had a Dev Evoker, I definitely would pick it. There we go. All right, ad's gone.
The reason why, just to throw out some logic out there, why I'm saying it's below Resto Druid. Um, technically, because for Resto Druid it's a healer, but it can keep, if you play it well, it can keep up to 2k single target damage as a healer, and it can do incredible AoE. And it just slightly offers a bit more than Evoker, in my opinion, at least Devastation. So that's why I'm just kind of hesitant to put it above Resto. But that's a minor thing. It's still S tier. So yeah, cool.
For sure. All right, now we're going on to the next uh, spec for Evoker, and this is Preservation. It's their healer spec. Do you want to speak on this?
Yeah, so I started maining this when the expansion came out. It is incredibly strong. Like, I would put it in S tier for sure, and the reason why. So it's got the same utility I mentioned with Devastation. The thing I like about Preservation. So Preservation, if you're looking for a real challenge, um, in terms of healers, I would recommend Preservation, and the reason why is because you have to be very, very, very precise on on your positioning, but also you have to play well as a group for Preservation to get stronger. The way it works, the main heal for Preservation, at least in raids, I can't speak much. I can speak a little on dungeons, but yeah, on raids at least, you throw like a bowling ball called Temporal Anomaly. What it does, it throws a bowling ball in front of you, and whoever gets hit by that bowling ball gets an Absorb Shield. And whoever has that shield buff, anytime you do any heal now, they have an effect called Echo, which duplicates any of your healing abilities. So, like, let's say I put a heart on you, and you don't have Echo, it's one heart. If you have Echo, and then I put the heart on you, you have two hearts now. They actually have more hearts than a Resto Druid, but it takes a bit more setup. I can put up to 5 hearts on the target, which I think Resto Druid can only do one, two, three, about four, maybe five, because you can technically have a wild growth ticking, which is a short duration heart. But Preservation actually, with correct play and enough practice, you can get more hearts out than a Resto Druid. And it can move while casting, like the Devastation Evoker. So that's a really good upside. It can dispel bleed effects, magic effect, poison effects. It's got that raid buff too. Its damage is kind of okay. It's definitely below Resto Druid in terms of single target damage. It's got incredible AoE damage, however. It's got Fire Breath and Deep Breath. So on a big AoE pool, your Preservation Evoker, don't be surprised if they jump up to the top of the meters for at least, the first maybe 10 seconds before it drops down depending on how long the pool lasts. But it's got that going for it. It does have a AoE oh shit button called Rewind. Basically, all the 33, I think it's 33% of all damage taken in the last few seconds, it will heal it back up on a 5-minute cooldown. But it's not that strong at level 30. But it's there. It's a nice AoE. Oh shit! I need to like top like 6 people off kind of button. So that gives it value. Single target wise, it's an incredibly strong healer as well. They do have a really unique defensive cooldown they can place on a tank called forgot the name. That's interesting. So they have a defensive cooldown that works like a monk's stagger. Basically, when they use it, it's on a 1 minute cooldown, but it can be reduced if you play a certain talent setup. It will basically stagger all of, I think 70% or 50% of all incoming damage on that target over 8 or 10 seconds. Excuse me, I just couldn't remember the exact details, but it's a really strong defensive cooldown. You can negate like tank busters with that ability if you do it correctly. Um, yeah, so it's, I would say just below Resto Druid. I would say definitely my experience with it. In terms of when it gets bis, like Valinir, just briefly mention it. Works pretty well with Valinir too, but not as good as Resto Druid. But yeah, I would put it side by side with Resto Druid for sure.
Yeah, I agree. it definitely mirrors somewhat with the HOTS what a Resto Druid is able to perform. But I feel like Resto Druid just kind of does it better. Um, I personally have never played a preservation. That's a lie. We tried it in the dungeon tournament in practice, and it didn't go well at all. Granted, I never played it before that point, but it doesn't seem like it has as much kit as what a Resto Druid would bring. So I agree with you. Would you put it above a Devastation Evoker or below?
Would I put it above or below as a healer? Let me think about that one. I would say above. I would say above. Also, here's the thing. It's a really high skill cap spec. So I agree with what you were just saying, Duty. Resto Druid is way better. Like Resto Druid, you just have to press a hot on everyone. There's not much to think about. You don't have to like be really careful with your positioning. Preservation, you have to play really well for it to be really good. So honestly, like for someone that's just new to healing, I wouldn't even like I wouldn't say for them like it's S tier. I would say like just go Resto Druid if you want like a really good general healer. But yeah, definitely below Resto Druid for sure. For sure.
For sure. All right. And then I know it's not on the list. I'm really sorry that I didn't notice that before we began this. But the last one that a evoker has is called augmentation. Where would you want to give some insight on that? What is an augmentation evoker?
Yeah, so an Augmentation Evoker is a support spec in WoW. Basically, it buffs your allies, basically giving them main stat, giving them verse, giving them critical strike, and allowing them to do more damage, whilst also doing damage itself. So we've touched upon utility, so I'm going to touch upon it just specifically Aug's like main function. So um, I think it's really strong. Um, Problem is we haven't had much testing with it to like be like for me to precisely say like how good it is, but it's really strong. I've seen it in Sunwell like as of recently. Um, Pretty strong. Buff your allies. I think what makes the aug stronger or weaker is the player playing it. It has a 2 minute cooldown called Breath of Eons. Breath of Eons basically you like kind of fly over the location, you put your mouse cruiser, and it will like breathe over those targets, and it will put a debuff on them. And I think about 11% of all damage done by your allies who damage into the Breath of Eons, it will explode after like 8 seconds. It's similar to if anyone's played Arcane Mage, Touch of the Magi. Like it kind of accumulates damage and then it explodes after 8 seconds. So it's kind of like that. But if you're playing like a decent level as an augmentation, and you buff the right people, like for example, if I'm in a raid, and I have a rogue, and then I have 3 warlocks on the side, I want to buff the warlocks because they're gonna benefit way more, from basically the. Let me rephrase. I'm like kind of spaghetti coding my words here. Sorry.
You're good.
They have a button called Ebo Might, and it gives 7.5%. Sorry if I'm incorrect about the exact percentage, but I think it's 7.5% of your 7.5% of your main stat goes on to the people you buff, and it buffs 4 targets plus yourself, I think. Um, so the way I know it works at max level, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning max level, is that you can see when people are popping cooldowns. There's like an icon that appears over the head. Like if a warrior pops recklessness, which we don't have a level 30, you can see that visually. Like, oh, that warrior's popping recklessness. I should buff him. We do get that function at level 30, but we don't have cooldowns at level 30. There's only a few classes that do, like Mage has Arcane Surge and Shadow Priest has Void Eruption. So that only might be the few specs that you'll see. But you have to, I think, yeah, just buff the right targets. So it's again, it's like preservation. It's high skill cap. Like you have to play correctly. But I would say low S tier. Like definitely, there's no reason why it shouldn't be an S tier. I don't think anyone is opposed to getting buffed, and the buffs are not exactly weak. They can keep up to almost 2.7, 2.8k damage. AoE is pretty strong too. Upheaval hits like truck, which is their main AoE thing that they have going on. Yeah, I would just put it lowest tier for sure.
I agree with low S tier. I think Devastation's obviously much better at performing damage than an augmentation evoker, but it is again, I tried out augmentation and it was really cool to be able to buff my allies while we were practicing for the dungeon tournament. I'm sure too in a raid setting, while you got lots of different people with PIs going out and stuff like that, being able to pop like improve their stats would definitely be a cool feeling. That's not something we're really going to be able to have in other classes. I I do think it belongs in S tier, but I also think I'm not sure about what I think with its actual damage. It's when I played it, it wasn't super stellar.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe not S tier, maybe like high A tier. I don't know. I just think that there's other classes that I look at an augmentation more like it just busts other people.
Look, how about this? Because look, the whole point of the tier list is being general. We're being very general. I can't say, hey, because this one dude makes this spec work, therefore it's S tier. We put it as high A tier, but I will leave a note to follow for those watching this video. It has a skill cap to it, so the better you get at playing it, the higher ranking it becomes. That is the case for, I mean, that's the case for every spec, obviously, but like it's more so the case for AUG. So high A tier for sure. Why not? But it can get better. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So again, guys, I don't have the icon for it, but technically speaking, augmentation would be right in front of Vengeance Demon-Hunter.
Yep.
So just maybe we can add that in like post production or something. I can find a more up to date tier maker. But yeah, I didn't feel comfortable with it being in S tier because again, like if I have a evoker that's going to be coming in to do damage, 10 out of 10 times I'm going to be picking a Devastation Evoker rather than Og, unless that person specifically just wants to play like a party buffer.
Yep. I just
But I
want
feel like
to.
that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just I'm seeing some stuff in chat, so I want to make a comment. Um, so someone says, "Is everything gonna be S tier?" Not everything's gonna be S tier, but if we consider it S tier, which is subjective. Remember, it's a very subjective tier list based on me and Doody making this right now. Like, if you get 100 other level 30s to make their own tier list, everyone's gonna have different results. There's no finite way of saying what's S and A tier. That's the thing. Tier lists are meant to be very general. They're not like a fixed, like perfect way of saying, okay, this thing is like S A B. Like it depends on so many variables, but it is subjective. Like based on my experience, but or what I know about it, and based on what Duty knows about it and what he's experienced. Um, so like I said, just don't take this as like, oh my god, I have to follow this tier list. Like no, play whatever you want. But yeah, I mean that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like we kind of said our piece about Augmentation Evoker.
Yeah, we have.
So we'll move on to the next class. Next class is going to be Hunter, starting off with Beast Mastery spec. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so it's a little bit better than in Dragonflight. The main thing about BM Hunter is obviously your pet's doing the damage. The main thing it's always lacked, and I think it actually still does have this issue at level 30. You have a buff called Barb Shot. You stack it up 3 times on your pet. What it does for each stack is it increases the attack speed of your pet by 30%, up to 90. And the goal of BM Hunter is to keep that up 100% of the time if possible, so your pet's hitting 90% faster. Well, his attack speed is 90% faster. You struggle really hard to do that at level 30. And even so, the damage is just not there. Like it's lacking too many buttons at this level. The damage is maybe only slightly above like the 2 DKs. In terms of utility, it does have Hunter's Mark, so it gives a 5%, I think it's 5% damage boost to mobs above 80%, which is kind of cool. That gives it a little bit more value. Has an immunity with Aspect of the Turtle. Let me think. It has Aspect of the Cheater. It's got 2 survival of the fittest, which is like a 40% damage reduction cooldown. So decent there. It's got a nice self heal button that can top your pet off, and then it heals you for 30%, and then it gets reduced by the amount of focus you spend. I just don't think it's like all that. Even AOE situations with multi shot and beast cleave in dungeons, it's not performing the way it should be at level 30. Honestly, I would say high D tier. That's just me personally. Explosive shot is decent though, about 30-second cooldown. But it doesn't even have camouflage anymore, to be honest. So BM specifically, I would say low. You know what? Because I'm thinking of damage when I say low D tier. So let me rephrase its placement. Maybe low C tier because the utility makes it extremely good in dungeons, but BM specifically is just not great in terms of damage. So its damage sucks. Just to get that out of the way. Everything else is great though. So I'd argue like C or low B or low C. I don't know. Like I'm too minded about it. Like
I would say low C. I wouldn't even consider B. Either very, very high D or low C. As you said, the damage on it is nothing shy of shit, but its kit kind of it brings it up a little bit in this tier list. Um, I feel like Beast Mastery is the weakest hunter spec,
yeah, it is.
so it can only go up from here. Me personally, I think we should just put it in low C. Uh, Furthest down, even beyond Havoc.
Furthest down beyond Havoc. Let me think about that. I would put it above Havoc because it does have more utility than Havoc that helps everyone else. Um, would I put it below a Blood DK though? Yeah, I would put it just above Havoc DH. That's me. Yeah, I would just say that to be honest.
Havoc does Havoc does all right damage, but aside from the movement, I feel like yeah, it has some absorbs or not really absorbs, but basically the ability to dodge damage.
I would say above
Uh,
Havoc just because of utility. Like we
yeah, I'll
remember
take you up on that.
if we're just talking damage, it sucks. But like Hunter is phenomenal. Like beyond anything besides damage for BM specifically. So definitely above Havoc. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All right, then if nothing else is to be said about Beastmaster, we'll move on to I believe this is survival. Do you want to go and give your input on survival?
Sure. So this one's way better by far. It's got arguably the most consistent AOE in terms of some of the specs we've already talked about. I'm gonna say low S tier or high A tier. It's got the same utility as the BM Hunter, but remember survival is melee, so functions slightly differently. Um, AOE is phenomenal, definitely S tier worthy. Single target damage is phenomenal, definitely S tier worthy in terms of damage. Utility is the same as BM, so that's extremely high valued. In dungeons, if you like, let's say in the dungeon tournament, recently there was the Legacy 30 Season 6 tournament. The winning team, Time Walking team, played a hunter. They played it in previous tournaments as well. If played really well, mapped out, is extremely fun in dungeons. By far the best like class in dungeons, like for more general situations. Um, Raids too, definitely top three, top five. Well, top five, yeah. So yeah, I would say high A tier or low S. I just don't know where to place it on that, but it's extremely good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Hunter survival specifically. So
Okay. So, in my opinion, for survival, I've always seen them as whenever it's kind of like how Arcane Mage used to be back in the day. If you saw an Arcane Mage come in, you were like, hey, this person's probably going to be top of the charts. Survival is that. It was back in Dragonflight, and from what I've seen so far in the War Within, it still is that at 30. Uh, Me personally, I don't think it should be S tier because yes, it does incredible AoE damage. It's a really fun class, but it also doesn't bring any raid wide buffs from what I can recall. I believe the only time you can get a pet with Bloodlust, I don't even think you can get that at 30, or it's Beast Mastery only. Is that correct?
you can't get Bloodlust anymore. But just to correct you, it does provide a raid buff. It gives Hunter's Mark, so it's a debuff. It increases everyone's damage by 5%, which gives it exceptional value. Um, so I think that's definitely worth taking into account for sure.
Okay, so it increases everyone's damage with Hunter's Mark. Other than that, it can't revive. You can fake death. I mean, that's if you need to clear clear your aggro. But its damage is, as you said, incredible. Uh,
Look, so here's the thing. For raids, you always bring a survival hunter. It's extremely well performing. For dungeons, there's absolutely never a situation why you would reject a survival hunter. It's extremely phenomenal. S tier for raids and dungeons. Other contexts, perhaps. I mean, what other contexts exist except for dungeons and raids? I mean, yeah, I
Even
mean,
in
even
PvP, it's pretty brutal.
yeah, even in PvP, it's not as brutal as Marksman for XP off stuff, but it's definitely really strong still. Um, I'm just gonna say last year. Um, like, yeah, I just
Yeah,
I can't see why not.
I'll take you up on S tier because of that Hunter's Mark buff, debuff that it provides to like a hostile mob is definitely a big plus. And it's almost kind of like Mark of the Wild. If you don't bring a druid, you don't get that versatility buff. Same thing with the damage increase for a survival hunter. So we'll
Yep,
go low S tier.
cool.
All right, next is the final hunter spec. This is going to be marksman. What's your thoughts?
So a marksman's range, I put an A tier. Same stuff we've mentioned about all the other hunter specs. Damage in terms of the damage in terms of AOE is really bad. Really bad. I don't know if it's worse than BM. It might be. Just the last I remember, it's one function. Sorry, it's one AOE button multi-shot when you spec into it. It's just he used to hit really low amounts. I don't recall. I could be wrong. If you can, there's this thing with some of the talents where you can rapid fire and it ricochets and hits additional targets. Just can't remember if we get that at level 30 because I haven't really used my MM in an AOE situation yet. But its single target damage is A tier for sure. And because it's got all the other stuff we've already talked about, I'd put it A tier definitely, just below Avengers Demon-Hunter, I think.
I was thinking that same thing. I would definitely put it below a vengeance, but definitely above what a druid can provide.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say, uh, for PvP, obviously,
Yeah.
if you do we get camouflage anymore at 30 or
No, we
no?
don't. Unfortunately, not.
Okay. But this is not going to be considered in a tier list, but if you can get like an invisibility ring or whatever, go invisible and then pop out with a name shot and possibly one shot somebody, really good feeling for PvP. I've always liked a marksman hunter for that one.
Yes,
Um,
it's broken. You can rapid fire and just destroy someone. Like when we used to do war games, we would try and discourage hunters because you just press rapid fire, someone dies instantly. It's so bad, dude.
somebody in your chat said that they do get camo.
No, not anymore. It's changed. It's gone down. Let me. I can double check, but I'm pretty sure you
Yeah,
don't.
if you want to double check.
I'm pretty sure you don't. Like
You,
99%. Give me a second.
okay, no worries.
Let's see
Yeah,
here.
but marksman's always been like,
Yeah, you
if
don't.
you don't get them out, you're dead. They
Yeah.
don't.
No, you don't. It's where are you? I can't see you anymore. Oh no, you cannot. It's nowhere. You need to be at least level 50 to get it. So no. Yeah. We don't get it.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on now. This one has always been an absolute shredding machine
Hmm.
for 30. I don't know how it is now, but Arcane Mage, do you want to give your thoughts?
Yeah, so this thing used to shred in Dragonflight. And even in Shadowlands. I remember the one button arcane missiles build some people were playing, which was funny as hell. Um it's still okay, so the way it worked in Dragonflight it was literally like a one or two button rotation, minus like you obviously like do other things like shifting power. Now it feels like a real class. It is a bit weaker this expansion, like generally, but it feels like a real class. Like now you're actually pressing all your buttons. You're pressing Arcane Barrage. You're actually having to worry about mana. Like you can't cheese the spec anymore. Like the way we used to cheese it was like playing the Spark of Hope trinket to significantly reduce the cost of Arcane Blast, so we never had to like Arcane Barrage. Um, it's got Arcane Intellect, it's got Invisibility, it's got Spell Steal, which is really good for certain like raids in old content. Actually, even in dungeons, like I in season 3 of the dungeon tournament, I played Mage. We were doing like Magus' Terrence, and I spell steal like a 70 spell power buff. And even some dungeons you can spell steal Hay, so for dungeons they're really good as well. The AoE is really good as well, like absolutely phenomenal S tier damage for AoE. So single target damage, probably high A tier, S tier AoE. Utility is definitely S tier. Spell Steal, Polymorph. You can even spec into Mass Polymorph. I can't remember if that's a PvP talent. No, it's not. It's you can get Mass Polymorph and just like blink into a group of mobs and Mass Polymorph everything for 1 minute. Frost Nova, Cone of Cold. Um, yeah, I think it's extremely strong. It's got mirror images too, so you can threat dump if you're like kind of tanking or something like that. I don't know, whatever situation you're in. It's got ice block, so you can like ice block tank busters or debuffs on you. You have a decurse. Um, yeah, you have a shield on a 25-second cooldown. Was it prismatic barrier? Um, like just gives you absorb shield, so it's pretty strong. It's got conjure refreshments. I mean that usually you don't talk about that, but since it's a general tier list, I thought we add that in there. Um, yeah, I would say like there's no reason why it shouldn't be right next to survival. Like if I'm thinking about both of them right now, they're both providing like the same general like usefulness in all situations. So I would put it right next to the survival hunter.
Would you put it above or below?
Above or below? Ooh, would I put it above or
Like,
below?
think about it. If you were about to start a raid, let's just think of any raid. You have one DPS spot open, two people queue up. It's Arcane Mage or Survival Hunter. Which would you pick?
I would put the Arcane Mage in because also not accounting, accounting for this, which I didn't mention. Arcane Mage's burst is absolutely unhinged, dude. Can reach upwards of 15k with when spec correctly. I know like one dude did that. So I definitely would rather take the Arcane Mage over the survival in your example.
Okay. Um, I agree with pretty much everything you said about Arcane Mage, like the ice block, like the oh shit button. Arcane Brilliance, giving the intellect is nice. Blink, stuff like that, the mobility. Conjuring food, like you said as well. People don't really drink food anymore, but if you have a healer that is very budget and can't afford like melon water, well, you got a mage. Um, the only downside I can say to them, like I'm still okay with putting them above Survival Hunter, is once they run out of mana, they're almost just like a dump and stop. Like they will just unload everything and do super high damage, but then the moment their mana bar runs out and they don't have a way to get that back, the DPS truly does fall off. But with all the other functionality for it, I definitely do agree it's better than survival.
Well, just to
Cool.
comment on that, it doesn't actually like it. A part of his rotation is gaining mana back. Like it has functionality in it to cast your spells and get mana back. It's just never been notoriously known for being played that way at level 30, to maximize damage. But yeah, there is definitely like a more consistent way of getting mana back. That's like the way we play now. Um, but yeah,
But
it definitely.
you got four arcane charges. You're casting Arcane Blast, not Barrage, Arcane Blast. Your mana doesn't go down by like 5 to 10% every cast
Not
anymore.
it does, but now you have a talent where when you arcane barrage with four arcane charges, you get like 10% of your mana back. So the idea now is that, well, I didn't want to go into like the specifics on how to play it, but like when you arcane surge, it dumps your mana, and then you get like 5,000% mana regen. So it's basically full mana while it's up, and it's like a 1 minute 30 cooldown, but you can reduce it with a spell called Shifting Power, which reduces all your mage cooldowns. You're kind of playing around that. So like if I'm 30% mana and I don't have that arcane surge I just talked about, I'm gonna be using four arcane charges into arcane barrage, and it's gonna give me like 10% of my mana back every time I arcane barrage with four charges. And then you do that until you have your arcane surge back. So that's why when I said at the beginning, it's like it feels like a real class now. It's because we don't just spam arcane blast anymore, which we could get away with doing that in Dragonflight, but you cannot anymore. So
Wow, I
yeah,
really appreciate that insight, man. It's been a while since I saw an Arcane Mage.
yeah, no good.
Um, this one has always been kind of hit or miss for me. Fire Mage, what's your thoughts?
Hot Belonga. No, I mean it's I don't know, man. Fire has just not never been there. It's never been what it should be. Um, like even at level 30, we get two spells, which I thought would make it good. Critical Mass, which basically amplifies the amount of crit you get per like on your gear, per rating, and then Combustion. But it's just not there. I think it's just we're missing too many talents, and the Pyroblast just don't hit as hard as I think they should hit at level 30. In terms of damage, very weak. I'd put it. It's definitely above BM Hunter. But in terms of its utility, I think it should earn a B spot. So damage kind of mid. I haven't too much experience with Fire Mage and AoE because I've always opted in for Arcane and Frost. I think most people do. But I think only because of the utility we mentioned that mages do have, it can earn a B place tier. It is definitely above BM Hunter though in terms of damage. So yeah, I see no reason to why we shouldn't put it in low B tier.
100% agree. As I said, Fire Mage has always been hit or miss. If I see somebody playing a mage, it's either they're playing Arcane or they're doing it wrong. Obviously, people can play whatever the hell they feel like playing, but it's just kind of like an internal dialogue. So I definitely agree with you, B tier. Damage is a huge fall off as opposed to Arcane, but all the functionality brings it up from being low C to B tier.
I do want to say one thing though. There is only one thing Fire Mage is S tier at. The target dummies. I don't know why the target dummies have been bugged, and mage's damage goes up to like 50k or 100k. Like the ignite is just bugged on the dummies. So if you ever wanted fire to feel good, go hit the target dummies, man.
Wait, Ignite is still bugged?
Oh, still? Is that been a thing? Okay, yeah.
Dude, that's been a thing since MOP.
Wait, really? Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
Ignite
Sorry.
just kept back in the day. Off topic here for a second.
Yeah.
Ignite kept building damage, and it would just accumulate more and more and more to the dot.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what's happening, I guess, on the target dummies. Because I think I played around with fire and I'm like, wait, why am I doing 20k DPS? Like, what is happening?
Man, at this point, that's a feature. Frost Mage, what's your thoughts?
So its single target is only ever so slightly behind Arcane. AoE is definitely more fun and more consistent than Arcane. I just feel weird about putting an S tier though, man. Single target. I mean, yeah, I think yeah, it goes behind I think it has to go behind Arcane. Like Arcane still wins single target. Frost is way better for AoE, and then obviously all the toolkit we mentioned, which made it worthy of S tier. It would just have to go alongside Arcane. Which, yeah, might feel weird to a lot of people. I'm kind of hesitant on it too, but at the same time, I know it is strong. It's just, maybe it's not played enough. Like, I've played it, like in raids and dungeon tournaments. It is very strong. Yeah, I don't know why I'm hesitant. I would just say stick it right behind Arcane Mage.
I mean, it's Frost Mage is pretty much what mages are known for, especially back in Classic with Blizzard being able to drop down a shit ton of AoE damage super quick. If you get lucky with your procs and stuff like that, even not procs, but just general damage, Frost Mage is still pretty good. Obviously, Arcane beats it in pretty much every avenue, damage-wise, but it's definitely far better than what Fire is.
Oh, can I interject? I'm so sorry, guys. So in Dragonflight, we had like the Warforged gear, and we could get crit mastery, which is like the main thing you're going for as Frost. We don't have much mastery anymore, so Frost's AoE is significantly weaker. And just because I remember that, I would opt for a high tier A placement. It lacks so much mastery, this expansion, compared to its former expansion counterpart, that now I just hesitate even more for its AoE component. So I'm just gonna say high A tier.
I find that funny because I was ramping myself up, getting ready to be like, Mr. DruidMan, I'm debating you. I think it should be A tier, but I'm glad that you see the same thing I see. Would you put that above or below Augmentation Evoker?
Oh yeah, where's Og right now? Shit, I forgot because we don't have
Og is basically where Frost is right now. Would it be above or behind?
Behind, definitely behind, definitely behind.
Behind. So for those of you who are listening, Augmentation would be better for a general purpose pick over a Frost Mage.
Yep. Someone in chat asks, what happened to Warforged gear? Well, now it's not the highest item level anymore. So the stat proportion, is that the right word? The stat, I guess, relative to your Sunwell gear or like other gear choices is now significantly weaker. It's not like now competing for top 2 pieces of gear. So you don't really wear that gear anymore. But yeah.
All that Warforged farming.
God,
rip.
Yeah.
All right. So last time we made a tier list, I made a tier list. I absolutely shit on on Mistweaver Monk, and I had been warned to not do that again. I will, if you don't mind, I'll give my 2 cents
Yeah, sure.
first,
Go ahead.
just purely on the healing perspective, and then I'll let you elaborate on everything else. Um, I've always seen monks, Mistweaver monks, as really good with. Do they get cocoon at 30? The big time shield.
Yeah, but it's a joke. I wouldn't even call it a big shield. It absorbs 2,000. I'm not even joking with that. It's so bad.
All right. So with that, with that in mind, I feel like Mistweaver is very solid for single target healing. It doesn't do. Does Spinning Crane Kick still heal AoE?
It never used to, but now it does. There's something called Gust of Mist. So when you spinning crane kick, it can heal allies. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what that healing's like? Is it efficient? Not really.
I'll be honest,
Or is it
haven't
stellar?
really touched Mysterio's expansion. Um, Coming from Dragonflight, if I may just state this, it was extremely strong in Dragonflight. The only difference now, it's more fist weaving oriented. So you're fist weaving meaning you're doing damage to the boss, like in melee range, and that's how you kind of heal now. You're firing out hearts and then you're just spamming damage to heal people. I don't know how strong that looks though in performance wise in dungeons or raids. Haven't seen anyone play it and haven't even touched it myself. So I'm hesitant to just assume something about it for the monk viewers. It does, in theory, though, from what I've observed about it when I was like doing the class guide, looks pretty good. But I definitely don't think it's as strong as Dragonflight. We lost the main thing that made it really strong, which was Essence Font, which was basically like a channeled fucking excuse my language, a channeled heal that you'd press on like I think it was like a 20-second cooldown or less, and it was extremely strong last expansion. Now we don't have that anymore. Um, yeah, sorry. And do you want to continue what you're saying, and then I guess I'll continue with the rest of my points.
Sure. Again, I know you'll go into all the kit and everything, but me personally, I don't feel like it brings much kit other than just single target healing. That's pretty much it. They do get that party wide buff that increases stats by what is it? I think 5%, right?
Um, that
The
sorry, was
bell.
that a debuff or what was it? Can you rephrase that? I didn't catch you. Sorry, I was like distracted by chat for a second.
Oh, you're good. Monks give out a buff increases your stats by like 5%, right?
No, no, no. That was way back in MOP. We don't have that anymore. What they do have, but not at
Oh
level
God,
30.
I'm a dinosaur, man.
It's all good. It's all good. No, what they do have, but not at this level, is when they hit a mob, it will put like I think it was a 5% physical or magical debuff on them that increases damage taken by 5%. But we don't get that at level 30, so it doesn't actually have a raid buff. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll finish up my section. I'll let you go. I'm sorry for delaying. Oh
Okay.
God, I'm really. It's been a while. Um, they are good single target. Don't really bring much, if any, kit. There's no B reses, nothing like that. They're good with mobility. That's about it, other than single target. I would say either high C or low B tier for healing. Go ahead, Drew, man.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like just to elaborate more on this toolkit, so it's got like I don't even consider these like good, but like okay, it does have like double roll, can get triple roll, so you can like roll forward with momentum. You can get Tiger's Lust, which basically frees you out of a route, gives you 70% speed. You can port, so you can set a port down like a Warlock's port and then port back to it. But Mistweaver has Revival, which I've always like given it more credit than it's actually do like worth. Like Revival is a AoE oh shit panic button to heal your raid, and it can actually cleanse magical effects too. Um, but honestly, I've like even in my time playing it, never really got much value. I would say yeah. You said C tier, right?
I'd say high C, low B.
High C. I would put it above Blood DK. Yeah, I would agree with that. High C tier for sure. Yeah, I don't. I just think it's not there. What it needs for sure. And in terms of its healing because I don't think I covered this actually. It's renewing mist, which is a single hot healing. It's pretty good. You can get a renewing mist on your entire raid if you play correctly. That's kind of cool. You can get the red crane chi buff. Not buff. It's a talent, which is a 3-minute on use like spell. It summons a red crane, and then it just helps with your healing. But then again, it's a 3-minute cooldown. It's missing talents to reduce its cooldown significantly, so I just think it's not that great. Yeah, high C tier, definitely above Blood DK. If I disappear, it means I've been captured by the Monk Mafia, dude.
Listen, man, if I put it here, right, jokingly, this call's gonna hang up and I'll never hear from you again.
Dude, someone's at my door, dude. It's the Monk Mafia, dude.
Yeah, got the.
Oh god.
All right, so we'll move on to the next spec then for Monk, and that's going to be Brewmaster. You have a lot of experience with this, so I'll let you take the floor.
There is absolutely no other place for this except for high S tier. And if it was a god tier, I would put it on god tier. It is AoE, can shit on DPS classes AoE. Its single target is extremely strong. It's still slightly behind Prop Pally, but it's extremely strong single target. Its self-healing is disgusting. It is what a Blood DK should be at level 30. If anyone's ever over the years watched Blood DK soloing bosses, and you think, wow, they're so OP, that's what Brewmaster is at 30. It is a god tier class. It has so much toolkit AoE single target. It can control mobs like very well. Like in dungeon tournaments, you at least see a Brewmaster Monk being played in a few of the dungeons. If anyone is playing a tank, they are playing Brewmaster Monk. God tier tank. If I wanted to take any tank, I would take a Brewmaster Monk. If a Brewmaster Monk is playing correctly, you never need to heal them ever, and I mean ever. They can also heal the raid for a disgusting amount too. What else can they do? Yeah, I mean it's just disgusting. S tier. Like everything about it is absolutely disgusting. And I am keeping in mind its general utility and stuff, but it definitely just has to be S tier above Resto Druid. It is absolutely filthy.
I mentioned earlier in the live stream I think we were talking about Guardian Druid, that there was another tank that was the make or break for beating a raid. When we first, as Legacy 30, did Black Temple, we were not able to beat Illidan until we had a Brewmaster Monk. They are absolute game changers for content at 30. Their stagger is nuts. Even with borderline just general gear, they are incredible. They don't really provide buffs to the raid, but there have been times on DoodiHealz that I genuinely did not heal a Brewmaster Monk one time because they're able to just keep themselves going. They are absolutely top tier, S tier, and if you're ever going to play a tank, I highly recommend specifically Brewmaster. You agree with that?
Yes, and it's also one of the few specs that can solo raid bosses for anyone interested in solo content. You can solo comfortably every dungeon, heroics even, and even raids, which, yeah, I do a lot of that for fun, so it's pretty good. One more thing I want to mention upon it is that it also has incredible... This is more like niche stuff. Because of the vanilla weapon mechanics with like tooltips that read chance on hit, Brewmasters can use like spinning crane kick and rushing Jadewind to like abuse some of those mechanics. Not abuse, but like take full advantage of them is the better wording. To like you can permanently lock down mobs if you use like Silent Fang from Skullomance. You can basically use Thunder Fury as a Brewmaster, and you see like 50% of your AoE damage is from the Thunder Fury. Honestly, in terms of fun scale, it's like a 11 out of 10, dude. It's so fun, dude.
Absolutely agree. Brewmaster is something else. Moving on to the last monk spec, we got Windwalker. What's your thoughts on Windwalker?
Windwalker, pretty good. It's got strong AoE, strong single target, very consistent too. It's not like cooldown based. Same obviously utility as the other specs. It can do the same, like the last part I mentioned about Brewmaster. Windwalker could do that too. Where do I place it? Definitely not above Survival or Arcane. I think it low S or high A. That is my thoughts on it, because it's very like it doesn't provide a raid buff or a raid debuff. It's consistent in terms of damage, but then it's pretty basic, if that makes sense. Like it's good at being basic but good, if that makes sense. Like it's not like special. It doesn't do anything crazy for the raid or for the party.
I just saw someone in your chat. The only thing Windwalkers are good at are tabbing to their Daki Armory bookmark.
Jesus Christ. Oh man.
I again, monks don't really bring a kit to raid other than just being able to perform their specific role. Because of that, I feel like they have less functionality than what a mage would, so it absolutely hinders it on that front.
Definitely.
But the damage, like you said, is pretty good. I would argue that it is behind Vengeance in A tier, but above Marksman.
Yeah, I agree. Because it doesn't really offer much else. I would agree with that for sure.
All right.
Dude, chat's
Um,
popping off, dude.
Next one that we're going to be going to is Paladins. So we're going to start off with their healer spec that is Holy. Go ahead and elaborate on what you think Holy is about.
All right. Anyone who plays a Holy Paladin, I'm very sorry. No, I'm kidding. But Holy Paladin's always been a meme. It's always been weak. It's single target. It's purely a single target healer, and it's kind of cool at the same time because you're playing vanilla to Wrath content, where Pallies were only good at that. They didn't have AOE until Kato, and ironically is at level 30 the healing Light of Dawn is so weak. It's such a bad button to press. Um, that you have to like invent a new way of playing it to make it good, which is like something I covered in the guide. Even then, it's so bad. Like it's a single target healer, and because of that, it's bland, generic. It does offer only a few things to the raid, so it can offer, if you spec into it, Blessing of Sacrifice, which most of the time you don't need to press that button. Blessing of Protection, which would get more value. That's a cool. That's always a useful button to press. Devotion Aura, and Consecration Aura, which Consecration Aura gets more value in a lot of Burning Crusade content. There's like a lot of silences and interrupts, so that makes it kind of useful. Um, it's got Lay on Hands, Bubble, but that again, Lay on Hands is like a 10-minute cooldown, and Bubble is like a self personal thing. Honestly, I would say like I'm trying to think now. Would I want a Mistweaver Monk or a Holy Pally? And I would say Mistweaver. I'd place it because of its toolkit. Only because of its toolkit, it might underplace above Mistweaver. But then
If
again,
you
I'm
want,
kind of hesitant. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
if you're ever unsure for this tier list where you want to put something, you can just tell me, like, give my insight, and then if I'm like, I mean, I'll head start here a little bit. I would put it very low B tier
Okay.
above Mistweaver, and that's primarily because of the kit that it brings, not necessarily the healing. The healing brings it down, but the kit brings it up.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
true.
if you ever want to do that, just let me know and I'll help you out, man. We'll work as a team.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so. And I would agree with you with that. Only because of its toolkit, it would have to go above Mistweaver, so low B tier. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Sounds good.
If anyone wants a TLDR for Holy Pally, if you play if you play DPS and you can't decide whether you want to be a DPS or healer for like a raid or a dungeon, and you want to be the worst of both worlds, you can just pick Holy Pally.
Oh God. Yeah.
Um, all right, next Paladin spec is going to be Prop Pally. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so oh my God, I've had a roller coaster with this spec in the past week. So since the patch came out, we've gotten a Divine Toll and Refining Fire, which are basically two talents which make it worthy of S tier. Which I'm not settling on that from my perspective yet, but I'm going to talk about why I think so. So Refining Fire is a talent that when you're Avenging Shield, it does a radiant fire damage on the target, radiant damage or whatever fire damage. Correct me on the details, but yeah, it most of the time is your top damaging ability. So it makes prop Pally's damage for like single target better than Brewmaster Monk. Its AOE is only slightly behind Brewmaster Monk. Actually, not slightly. It's like let's just give general numbers out there. Let's say a Brewmaster's doing 7k on a pack to 20. Prop Pally would be doing like 5 or 6k. So Brewmaster still technically wins in the AOE and it's more consistent. Uh, Prop Pally in terms of tankiness are very strong. They are like a buffed version of Warrior because they have the shield like the Warrior. They block as much as the Warrior, but they also have Mastery, which makes you block even more damage when you're in your consecration. Only problem with Prop Pally is it's really bad if you don't have haste. Because of that, I've tested this and also bounced it upon some other theory crafters. This is the only one of the few specs at level 30 that you sacrifice main stat just to go haste. You go pure haste, and you could get around like 40% passive haste, and it makes the class feel so good to play. Like your tankiness goes up, your healing goes up, your damage even goes up, the amount of buttons you have available to press every global goes up. Um, I would say, because it also offers the same toolkit as the Holy Paladin, I think it has to earn an S tier placement because it definitely offers more in terms of its functionality than a Frost Mage would or a Vengeance Demon-Hunter would. So I'm just trying to think now, from my perspective, if I would say it's better than a Guardian Druid or not. I don't know. What do you think? What's your thoughts on it?
So I always felt that a paladin is kind of the hybrid of all tanks. It can self heal, obviously with lay on hands, flash heal, stuff like that. It has absorbs. It has movement speed in the charger, and I've always had a good time with them. They've always been my. If it's not a brewmaster or a guardian, Pally's always good. They bring auras, they bring blessings, so their kit for buffing the raid is very well. Um, I haven't worked too much with a paladin since the War Within came out, so can you remind me, do they get a B-res, or is that only specifically holy or something?
No, they get it. All three specs get the battle res, so that's
So
actually really,
then
really
that
strong. Yeah.
so then that's another thing that they would bring kit wise is the ability to B-res somebody. And the only other class that can do that is Druid. They are a really solid tank, like you said. If you know, from a general sense, they're really good. But if you build haste, they could be even better. But again, looking at this from a general sense, I would put them next to a Guardian Druid in S tier. If I kind of wish this tier list had something that was like two two classes put straight side to side, because if I was offered one or the other, I wouldn't pick one over the other. They both have pretty much the same functionality. Druid gets a little more just sheer damage mitigation, and Paladins get a little more of just being able to uh, keep themselves shielded up. So I would personally put it, if I had to, I would do right here. Are
Yeah,
you?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, are you on board with that, or what do you feel?
So here's the thing. On my in my head it's toe to toe with Guardian. Like Mark of the Wild is equivalent to Devotion Aura, but Mark of the Wild slightly pulls ahead as it has like a damage and healing component to it. Guardian Druid has a little bit more raid healing and it's not conditional on mana. Like Prop Pally on a long fight can run out of mana if they're spending too much holy power on Word of Glories. Um, even the one that procs a free Word of Glory it still costs mana. So I would say yeah, behind Guardian Druid. Um, I would say like in a lot of content, I would prefer still a Guardian over a Pal. I mean, yeah, I just put it behind Guardian. It's toe to toe though. To be honest with you, it's not like I'm picking one over the other. They're literally toe to toe, but there's no way to do toe to toe on a tier list. So
I agree.
yep.
All right, we'll move on then to the last Paladin spec. This one is Retribution. Do you want to give your insight on Retribution Paladin?
It's the exact same thing as Windwalker Monk. Like it's generic. It's good. AOE is good single target, but it's pretty boring. But it has the toolkit that Monk doesn't have, so I think it has to go above that for sure. Um, um, Regarding its placement though, I don't know. What do you think? I'll just say it has what Windwalker Monk has, but better in terms of toolkit and utility. So.
Yeah, I if I've always seen Ret as really good. I've seen like their Templar strikes hit super hard in the past. I don't know if that was specifically built for versatility or whatnot, but it was. I've always seen them as pretty good. Um, they bring the same kit as a typical paladin does, such as B-res, blessings, auras, such and so forth. I do agree that they are above what a Mistweaver, Windwalker monk would be, but I don't think that they are anywhere near S tier. They are definitely not above a Frost Mage or a Augmentation Evoker. If I were to place it, I would say here. Are you in agreement of that?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good place.
Okay. All right. That does it then for paladins. Let me shut my fan off. Sorry, hope you don't hear that. And resituate myself. There we go. Okay, so next is Discipline Priest. I believe that icon's Discipline, right?
Yeah, Disc Priest, just discipline. Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah. All right. If I may give just a little bit of insight. So when we get down to it in the future, my go-to spec is Resto Shaman. I actually just completely cleared my account. I have 3 characters now, and all 3 of them are Resto Shamans, so they're a good time. Um, my direct competitor has always been Disc Priest. The shielding that they give is absolutely incredible. They deal damage to enemies, and correct me if I'm wrong, they deal damage to enemies and then heal based on the damage that they deal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they're really good for. They are kind of like how a Blood DK is both a tank and a healer. These healers are both a healer and a DPS. They bring incredible versatility with being able to move around the battlefield. Again, the shielding's extremely nice, and they are, I would argue, I I was looking at the tier list. I kind of don't like that preservation is so high up. I kind of want to move it to low S tier, like behind survival, and then put discipline in its place. Um, this is going to be one of those cases where a restoration druid. I'd argue a restoration druid is slightly higher because of its kit, but for actual healing, I feel like this priest would be higher. But would I be able to move preservation down? Are you still wanting to keep it this high up?
Yes, definitely. Let me know when you finish, and I'll stay why for the Disc Priest.
Okay, so I'm going to move preservation down. I don't feel like it should be as high up as it is. I don't know. Since we did, I was thinking about it. But this priest, I still feel like, again, it doesn't have B-res like a druid does. It doesn't provide the versatility increase. It does provide stamina, at least. But this priest has been my direct competition with Resto Shaman. They are absolutely S tier. Go ahead, Druid.
So I have a completely opposite view. I think Disc Breach is extremely bad. The concept of it is good. So how it works, you apply out attunement buffs to your party, and then you spam damage on the boss or the target to heal the group. The healing is quite weak due to lack of available, I guess, I don't know, whatever it is, talents or mastery at this level. Holy is significantly better than Disc. The only function for Disc nowadays is for the preventative damage shields. The biggest value contributing to Disc's placement on this tier list is going to be the fact that it has 2 pain suppressions, which is always nice considering a lot of classes don't have a defensive. So Disc has 2 of them, which is great, and it has a power word barrier, which can be placed on the ground. Everyone stands in it, 20% damage reduction, and immunity to pushback. Which the pushback part doesn't matter, but I throw it in there. Its DPS is quite weak. Its healing is quite weak. And the thing is, preventative damage is not really necessary in the kind of content we do. There are only like tank busters where maybe it's overtuned and you need to press a button, but even then the tank can press a button himself. So it's just not that strong, to be honest with you. In terms of utility, though, it does have Master Spell. It does do a massive amount of shields in its Rupture window, which is a 1.5 minute cooldown. Basically, it buffs your power shields for about 80%, I think, for like 5 shields, depending on if you talent into the talents necessary to make that work. But that's a long cooldown. It's a Master Spell. It's got Psychic Horror, which is an AoE fear. It doesn't actually just fear 5 targets, as it's been for like the past 20 years. It's actually all targets since Dragonflight. It can also spec into an AoE root, Void Tendrils, I believe. It's got Fade, which can aggro dump and also make you immune to slows. It also has decent hots, I suppose, with Renew. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, I wouldn't even consider it a viable hot. It's like, it's okay. It's got Grip and PI. Now, this gives it tremendous value. I mean, all priests will get value, but you can Power Infusion a target, give them 20% haste, or is it 15 now? And then you get Power Infusion too if you spec into the talent under it. And then you can also Grip people, which, I'll be honest with you, Grip, if we were doing a spell tier list, Grip should be S tier. Because the amount of times Grip can save someone, help someone that's in an unfortunate situation, it is insane. So for that, I would say Disc earns an A tier placement, and not purely focused on its healing component, but rather the toolkit it provides. And it's literally like if I wanted to do like progress, learn the game, learn something new, I would love a disc priest in the raid to save me. Like a disc priest who can press buttons to make up for my for me making a mistake. It's definitely good for that. So I think it earns a place in A tier. Um, just trying to think about where. That's the thing I'm not sure about, to be honest. Yeah.
I
Oh,
would put it above Ret Pally.
oh, and it also provides powered fortitude, which is 5% more stamina. Yeah, I think it goes above Pally for sure because Pally also has toolkit, but Disc has way more stuff than a Pally. So yeah, I wouldn't oppose to it going above a Red Pally for sure. Yeah.
Just a little public service announcement for anybody who doesn't know about what content is like at 30. For the Lich King fight in Icecrown Citadel, at one point in the fight, I don't know if it's only on heroic or if it's normal as well, but he will spawn Valkyries, and those Valkyries will grab people, bring them to a ledge, and then drop them off. We found that Priest, our Druidman actually played Priest. Priest is able to grip people and save them from dying from that mechanic. Uh, Arguably, surely because of your Priest, we were able to beat most of the times that we had in our, I think it was like 68 wipes. So Priest is absolutely incredible for that. I'm pretty sure now Evoker is going to be another one that can do that. But that grip for Priest is just absolutely, it's monumental when it comes to actually in-field usage. Really, really good.
Definitely.
Um, Next one we'll move to then is the second pre-spec, and that's going to be Holy for healing. What's your input on that?
So the exact same utility as Disc, which we're under at a high place, but its damage component is extremely strong. It even matches DPS specs. Like it can do more damage than a lot of these DPS specs. Um, it has a phenomenal amount of AoE, more than Disc, because it has an AoE Holy Fire if you spec into the right talents, and that's extremely strong. I think the first three dungeon tournaments, for example, we played Holy Priest. They're absolutely like insane. One thing I like about them over Disc as well. So Disc has pain suppression, Guardian's version. Oh, sorry. Disc has pain suppression, whereas Holy has a Guardian Spirit, which is their counterpart. And what that does is basically increases the all healing received by 12 for 12 seconds on that target. But if they get to 1 HP and they die, it will just save them from death. So it's like a cheat death, which is kind of cool. Um, I would say because its healing is like almost double stronger, and its AOE healing is like disgusting. It's like really, I mean, not disgusting. That's the wrong word to use. Its AOE healing is stronger than Disc. It is single target healing is stronger than Disc. The amount of oh shit buttons it has to save someone is way better because it has Holywood Serenity. It's like a lay on hands. You can just press it and heal someone to full. Short cooldown too can be reduced when you flash heal. I would say go above Disc Priest, but then again, the only reason I would maybe hesitate is because Disc Priest has two power shields. Sorry, two pain suppressions and a power barrier. But in theory, you don't really get like like mostly like in all the raids we've ever done, it's never gotten like great value compared to just having a holy priest who's gonna do way more healing. So I'd say yeah, go above a disc priest. It's got better damage, AOE healing, single target damage, and everything else a disc has. So I don't see why it shouldn't go above a disc priest.
I agree. I've always seen them as pretty solid healers, lacking the shielding, of course, but just baseline healing very strong. Would you say that if you were getting a healer for a raid and you had a Preservation Evoker or a Holy Priest, which would you prefer?
Ooh, good one. Who would I prefer? Honestly, I prefer the holy priest, which makes me think now does preservation belong in low S tier? Interesting.
I'm
Um,
thinking, I'm
yeah.
thinking because of the kit, it actually should be brought down to A tier.
You know what you should do? Because you asked me that question, and I didn't even have to hesitate. It was Holy Priest. Put Holy Priest where Prez is, and then put Prez above Disc Priest. That's what I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Like in terms, because
Yeah.
I know we're saying we're counting utility, but in my brain I keep thinking like just in terms of damage and healing, like Zug brain. So it's a good thing you reminded me.
That's all good, man. All right, this one's a lot of people's favorite. Shadow Priest. What's your input?
Ooh, definitely behind Resto Druid. Top 2 DPS in terms of single target. Literally unrivaled almost for single target. Maybe Devastation comes close. It's got mostly all its buttons. It's really fun to play. It's got cooldowns. It's got all the utility all the priests have, which will earn it a high place. Its off healing is incredible as well. You can spec into Vampiric Embrace and then pop all your cooldowns. And basically, what Vampiric Embrace does is heal your allies based on the damage you do. And you can pretty much in that window like heal a bunch of people to full HP. It's got like power for off heals with its shields. It renews. Yeah, I think it has to go above Devastation Evoker for sure because it has way more toolkit than Devastation and more damage. AoE is really strong too. Does fall off when there's more targets though. But yeah, definitely goes above Devastation Evoker and just behind Resto Druid for sure.
I've always thought of Shadow Priest as a staple for the raid. We've had it since we started in Shadowlands and have kept going with them. Shadow Priests have always been extremely incredible with their kit, obviously bringing what a typical priest does, but as well as the ability to deal such large amounts of damage. Shadow Priests, I feel like, are indeed stronger than a Devastation Evoker. Devastation Evoker, once you spend all your, I think it's called Essence, you're kind of hoping to gamble with procs and hoping that you get a free proc and then you can cast something if you have stuff on cooldown and whatnot. Shadow Priest has just always had just continuous. This thing's a fucking lawnmower and mobs are grass.
I love that. That's amazing. But yeah, I agree for sure, dude. For sure, that's amazing.
You know what's not amazing though
The next one.
about the yeah
Yeah, yeah.
fucking next we have ass.
It literally is called ass too.
All right. So Rogue has always been considered garbage ever since. Not garbage, I shouldn't say that, but definitely lower performing than other specs in terms of DPS and such. With the talent revamp, they didn't get much love, and they've been struggling since. There have been a few outliers of people in the community who have gotten it to basically been able to compete with like A tier, but looking at it from a general perspective of somebody who's just moderate skilled, moderate gear, how they're able to perform, it's not going to be what other classes will be able to. I'm sorry for rambling. Do you want to go ahead and give your input on Assassination Rogue?
Yeah, no worries. So look, besides all the memes we have about rogues, it's Assassin is the best of the three. It is definitely better than the other two. It is better performing than a lot of these specs we're seeing here, like on the C and the D tier. Assassin can hold up his own up to almost 2k DPS, and that's single target. And its AOE is decent too. It has Fan of Knives, which you can spam, and it's got a bunch of bleeds and poisons you can put on your targets. The thing that would make it slightly better, which maybe one day, but there's a mastery buff we get at level 41, which makes our mastery not only affect poisons but also bleeds. If we ever got that, Assassin would be like really good. But as of right now, where it stands, accounting for its utility, it's got Cloak, Vanish, which is combat drop and threat drop. It's got 2 Shadow Steps, I believe. I'm not sure if it's 1 now because I think a patch happened and I think they moved around a few of the utility talents. But 2 Shadow Steps from what I remember. Evasion. It's got Blind. It can also spec into AoE Blind. I believe that's on the left tree, so that would be for all 3 specs. Like AoE Blind's insane. You can also spec into a talent where when they come out of the blind, they do less damage. It has Sap. It's got Tricks of the Trade for aggro redirection. It's got Feint to reduce AoE damage incoming, which Feint's always been good. You can also, I believe, talent into a talent where it makes Feint do damage reduction. It's got Crimson Vial, which is a nice self-heal on a short cooldown. I would say, because Assassin is also pretty good for its damage, at least, it goes behind Marksman Hunter. Because in terms of utility, it's kind of similar to what Marksman's providing. Like, Marksman's is running around with the aspect of the cheetah, the turtle, but, like, what is that doing for the raid? Like for example, like, I'm just gonna say a random fight, like in War, Mimron. There's, like, bombs that spawn on the ground. Like, a rogue can, like, sprint and then Cloak of Shadows and trigger all the bombs to save the raid so that no one accidentally walks into it later. But Hunter can do that too. So it's, like, kind of similar to Hunter in a way. It goes behind Marksman though. It's definitely not better than Marksman. That's a guarantee. But it's definitely better than Boomkin. Um, yeah, I think it is pretty agile too. It's one of the more faster classes if you're looking for like a speedy thing. Um, Overall, it's definitely competing against Boomkin. Like now, the question is, do we want to place it behind or against Boomkin? I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one? On this?
Um, so assassin rogues at 30 mostly have the ability to control a fight with kidney shot, cheap shot, silences, stuff like that, putting bleeds on. They're really good with being able to put bleeds on and then get some distance in case, they happen to get aggro. Um, they are mostly, they take care of themselves, unless it's the rare circumstance, like you said, about if a boss has a bunch of bombs, you can pop cloak and then quick run over them and take care of them, sweep over them fast. But other than that, it doesn't really provide any major like damage increasing buffs or anything like that. Um, I feel like they don't have as much kit as what a Feral Druid would have, especially because Feral Druid has reincarnation or rebirth, the
Oh yeah,
ability to bring somebody back.
true, true, true.
They bring Mark of the Wild, and also they're able to self heal. Let's say your healer dies, you got a Feral Druid. Feral Druid can actually pop out a cat form and try to help keep the raid alive for a moment. Meanwhile, Rogue is just, hey, screw all you guys, I'm vanishing. I'll see you at good luck with that repair bill.
That's funny.
um, but I think Rogue is less than what a Fire Mage is because Fire Mage at least has a lot more kit. Even though Assassination Rogue's damage might be more, I feel like it should be B tier behind a Fire Mage.
Yeah, I agree. I just realized obviously the druids have the battle res and off healing and Mark of the Wild. Like I can't say that rogue goes above them. And definitely less. It's like kind of on par with a mage and what they can do. Mage slightly pulls ahead. It does have Shroud of Concealment, which came out in MOP. I don't know why I just mentioned that, but it basically allows you to stealth your party. It gets no value in raids, but in dungeons, you can just skip like entire sections. Be like, hey, can you stealth us, and then run past like mobs. Like rare situations where you might want to use that because the dungeons are so easy. Like, why would you want that? But yeah, I would say behind Fire Mage, definitely uh above Holy Pally, I guess. I mean, sure, why not? I mean, yeah, I think it has to go above Holy Pally. In terms of its function, which is DPS, it does that better than a Holy Pally does with its own, like, its function of healing. So, yeah, I think that makes sense where it goes right now.
Yeah, like I said, Holy Pally is, instead of being good at one thing, it's bad at two things.
Yeah, pretty much.
um, yeah, I still feel that that's a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. I
Um,
agree.
moving on to the next spec, I keep wanting to say combat, but Outlaw Rogue. Um, what do you feel about it?
It's got good burst, but then it's like a wet noodle after that. I've tried so hard to make it work. It just is missing too many talents. Um, it's also RNG. There's an ability called Roll the Bones. It gives you 1 out of 5 buffs, or you can roll all 5 buffs at the same time, or you can get 4, etc., etc. You can get 3. So it's like really RNG heavy, and even then, it's not even great. Like you're literally having to sweat to the max just to do what like a marksman can do casually. It's missing too much. Thing is, it does have grappling hooks of a shadow step. Um, that gets some use, I suppose, for certain situations. We saw it with, like the recent dungeon tournament. But then again, it's like rare situations where like 99% of people won't give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that special. I would say below Holy Pally, just being honest. Well, actually, hang on. What am I saying, dude? The damage just sucks. I'm so sorry. Forget the last comment I just made. Because the damage sucks, I think it goes above a Blood DK, not Holy Pally. I was looking at B tier for some reason. It goes above a Blood DK. Um, in terms of, because it does have the Shroud of Concealment, it can hold its own, it can help the raid in like weird special ways with like Cloak. It can also vanish, it can sap, it can tricks to the trade, and Blood DK's only thing is giving out the raid like an anti-magic zone, which is, it only absorbs like 4k. It's like not even that great at this level, and it's such a long cooldown. that I think Rogue's utility slightly pulls ahead in terms of its challenge against a Blood DK. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it going behind maybe a Mistweaver Monk. Definitely offers more than Havoc DH. I think his damage is slightly behind BM Hunter. They're like in the 1.4 or
It doesn't
1.5.
give the buff.
Oh, was that?
It doesn't give the damage debuff like Mark Hunter's Mark.
Oh yeah, I forgot they don't have that. I think that's 48, or maybe that's not even this class. Oh shit, you know what? It's garbage there, man. I think just put it behind on par with Havoc. Like I don't know, man. Like
I'd say it does what I'd say it's above Havoc but behind Beast Mastery.
yeah,
Because it provides
yeah,
more functionality than what a Havoc does, Havoc Demon-Hunter. But other than that, it's um I feel like Outlaw is very RNG based, especially with stuff like Roll the Bones. I mean, granted, now you can get that slice and dice, but they are very proc reliant. You almost need luck to get the class to flow properly,
yeah.
or you just need a metric ton of haste to be able to make it perform. And it flops right now. Again, for anyone who sees this past tense, don't get upset that you don't see something that is what you can make it S tier. This is looking at it from a general sense of somebody without having all that gear and enchants that you have. So I'm thinking honestly, it belongs right there in C tier. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like accounting for all those variables. Like I first said B, but then I thought about like what BM does. Yeah, I think it definitely belongs there, man. Um, yeah,
Because at
definitely.
least
Sure.
assassination, they can have bleeds during that downtime to keep their damage up. You know, they're a lot better than I feel outlaw.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I agree. I agree.
We'll move on to the last rogue spec then. I know this one is primarily for PvP. It's if this was a PvP chart, it would be either high A or low to mid S tier. Incredible CC as a typical rogue and everything. I feel like subtly rogue has really good bursts, but outside of that burst, it kind of flops. They're really good for short term fights that they're able to quick pump and dump and then disappear. For extended fights, they definitely, as I said, they flop. Go ahead, Druid.
Yeah, there was only like one time since 30s has been a thing. I think it was like 10 patch 10.0.2 where Rogue's really good because we had a certain talent that made it like decent. It's so bad. Like sub is just to be clear, sub's damage is so much worse than a Frost DK, which is already at the bottom. Sub is just yeah, it's I don't know, man, dumpster. But then again, it does have more utility than those two bottom DK specs. So we need to figure out if we want to place it higher because of that. But damage is not there. It's just turbo garbage.
Do
AoE is similar to a Frost DK. Unholy slightly pulls ahead, but yeah, sub is just not there, dude. It's garbage. Yeah.
do DKs still? Oh my god! I hope I don't sound outdated as fuck saying this. Uh, do DK still have that thing at 30 where they're able to resurrect a buddy with turn them into, or it's almost like a B res or no?
Holy hell! Are you talking about the one from Wrath of the Lich King where you turn him into a skeleton? No, no,
All
no.
right, we're not. We're
So
gonna forget that
they
happened.
do get V-Res. Yeah, they do get V-Res. I'm hesitating because I haven't played DK in a while. But yeah, at 30 they get V-Res. But the one you were mentioning got removed in like late RAF, so only 15 years late or something.
It's been a while.
That's funny, man.
All right. So because they have B res at 30, I think just subtly rogue
Yeah, pretty much.
um is
Garbage.
bad.
Pretty much, pretty much. I don't think
All
anyone's gonna
right.
oppose that one.
On to my favorite class,
Ellie
Shaman.
Shaman. Nice.
I'm gonna show no bias towards this though at
Sure,
all.
sure, sure.
None. Nope, I'm joking. Let me put this back. I know the order is fucked up, but
uh,
we'll go back. Uh, Ellie Shaman, what are your thoughts?
Uh, Ellie's always been pretty good, pretty consistent. Again, it gives me the same vibe I was giving off with the Reptilian Windwalker Monk. Consistent in AoE, consistent in single target, but it's pretty boring. It's pretty like just it's good at doing its basic function, but it does have totems, Earth Ellie, Wind Shear. It's got a lot of utility. Like you can go crazy with Shaman on the left side of the talent tree, like Tremor totems, You can give Wind Rush totem to people, Earth Grab totems, Root totem. Like utility is kind of crazy compared to some of these other classes. So I think its damage is up there. So its damage is competing on Ret and Windwalker, maybe slightly behind Windwalker, but its utility far exceeds like those two that I just mentioned. So, um, what are your thoughts on it? Yeah.
I feel like they bring that Sky Fury buff now, the raid wide mastery buff, as well as giving melee a chance to 20% chance to hit twice, I believe it is. They can reincarnate themselves. AoE wise has always been good. Um, dude, I gotta be honest, nothing feels better than being like the mad Italian where you put a flame shock on somebody, you just get endless meatball procs, and it's like, yo, have some spaghetti, motherfucker.
That's funny.
um, it's a really good time. If you don't get all those procs and build mastery quick, it can flop a little bit. I say mastery, but I mean maelstrom. I'd say it has more it has more kit than a frost mage, but I don't feel like it deserves to be an S tier. I would put it at high A above augmentation.
Yes, I agree with that. It has incredible toolkit for helping the raid, and I forgot the mastery buff as well. Gets obviously it helps everyone, but when you have a raid full of melee, it gets even more tremendous value, incredible value. So, shaman definitely above aug. Did you say you want it above frost mage or not? Because I could argue
Yes.
above. Okay, yeah, sure, that works. That definitely works. They have healing that mage doesn't, and the totem situation on the left side of the tree makes it superior to mage. So sure, why not?
So just to give a heads up again, um, oh my God, please, thank you. So the way that A tier is, I didn't realize before we started this that augmentation is actually missing from this chart. So A tier right now, and I'll reiterate this at the end, is currently Ellie Shaman as top tier A, and then it would be Augmentation Evoker for A, and then it would be Frost Mage after Augmentation. So those are the top three for A right now. So in between is Augmentation Evoker. Again, I'm sorry I'm missing the icon. It's my first day on the job. I'm the new guy. Nice to meet you. Now we move to Enhance. So one thing I did want to add for Shamans as well is that they can spec into Earth Shield as well as the ability to get, and this is any class or any spec wide, they can get Healing Stream Totem. So they can actually pop down a healing totem while they're dealing damage, and it will take care of the party, and it's relatively good at it too. Um, so Enhanced Shaman can perform really, really well if you even not built totally well. It does really solid AoE. It struggles a little bit in single target unless you get all kind of crazy procs. It provides the same class kit as a shaman. Again, Earth Shield. You got the Sky Fury buff. You got the Healing Stream Totem. The Self Revive. I've been seeing Czar, and I granted Czar is a just one reference for this, but Czar's Enhanced Shaman when he does an AOE pull is just it absolutely shreds. Now, granted, he's got the gear and stuff, so take that into account. But Enhance is a good time. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I definitely agree. One thing I didn't even mention for Ellie, which won't change its placement, but I want to say it because we're on enhance now too. Ellie can move while casting with Spirit Walker's Grace, and the Earth Shield as you mentioned. But also enhance. I don't know if they've removed it. I think next patch they might remove it. Ancestral Guidance, so you can heal based on the damage you do when you pop this cooldown, similar to like Shadow Priest's Vampiric Embrace. I absolutely agree though. Their single target damage is, I think as of right now it's okay. It's like maybe slightly behind like Marksman Hunter. AOE is absolutely goated though, absolutely. And next patch, which is literally only like I think 2 weeks away, maybe three, they're getting a flat 100% damage buff to Storm Strike, and what was the other ability? I think it was Lava Lash. Correct me if there was a one other ability. Two things are getting a 100% damage buff, and they can wear a two-hander and Storm Strike next patch, which is gonna bring up the level of fun at level 30 much more for enhance. I think it definitely earns an A tier placement. There's no reason. There's nothing like really bad about it, and it's only gonna get stronger next patch. So, how would you feel about going above Frostmage or potentially behind? I'll leave that one to you.
I personally feel like if I had to pick a DPS shaman, I would pick Ellie over Enhance. Um, and most, if not all, cases. It's just, again, the single target kind of sucks for Enhance, and then if you do AoE, again, nothing feels as good as a Chain Lightning, man. Especially if it double procs, you look like Darth Vader for a moment there, just um, so I would say to put it there. So it would be Ellie, Enhance, Aug, and then it would be Frost. So that's, again, Augmentation now would be in the third slot. We'll have to update this on another one. We'll replicate it and we'll make it look all nice.
Yeah, so for the video you won't see it, but on the Discord where we'll post it, we'll make sure it's there for sure. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Get out of here, bro.
Affliction. Oh,
Get the
all
hell
right.
out of here. No, you go first. Go ahead. Jesus Christ.
All right. So this is the only thing I play. This is Resto Shaman. This is the only reason I'm still subscribed. So take it as a form of bias. I have a lot of, obviously it's the same kit as what regular Shaman brings, but it's also the ability to be able to perform massive heals very quickly. Shaman doesn't really use secondary stats too much, in my opinion, because of how much function their class just innately gives with the talent points. It's really, really nice. Me personally, I would put it in S tier. Now, I'll be fair. I would not put it above a Resto Druid, all right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that they are nothing shy of incredible.
Okay. I will agree with you. I play Shaman, but I'm not like a main Resto Shaman's like something I just play on the side. They're really look. Their toolkit is incredibly strong. Like probably one of the best. Definitely more toolkit utility than a Resto Druid brings. The healing is extremely strong. Let me think. What else they have? Oh, one good side. What I like about Shaman, Spirit Link Totem. So you can literally save a raid from like stupid amount of damage coming in for whatever reason you need that. Healing Tide Totem, which I don't know if it's this patch or next. I'm referencing next patch because it's only around the corner, so this is still going to be relevant for that. But Healing Tide Totem, I think will have baked in Mana Tide Totem in it. So when you Healing Tide, you give 80% more mana regen to your group, which is kind of cool. I think it's definitely S tier. The question is where. Definitely not above Resto or Brewmaster. Definitely not above Shadow Priest. I think it goes behind Shadow Priest. It's definitely better than a Devastation Evoker for its function and what it provides. What are your thoughts?
I thought of another thing. Acid Rain.
Acid. Oh my god, yeah. Acid Rain is like a consistent, filthy amount of AoE damage too. Yeah, I think it goes above Devastation. There's no reason why it goes below that or above that. I think that's perfect for it. What do you think, dude?
I think it goes above for sure.
Yeah. When I watch how when I turn the stream off, he puts it above Brewmaster Monk. No, I'm kidding, man.
Yeah, just scooted over there.
Oh,
All right. Yeah, someone in your chat corrected me. I'm sorry, it's not Darth Vader. It's Sidious that uses Force Lightning. Sorry, he's spec'd into Mastery.
Nice.
Moving to the second last class that we got for today, it is Warlock, and we're looking at Affliction Warlock. What are your thoughts?
Affliction Dispatch. Let me think. It's okay. It's good. I sound like I'm hesitating. Sorry, I'm not. I just got distracted. But no, it's good. Its single target is way better than last expansion. Like really good now. Its AoE has always been good, but it's even better now too. Let me think. It has Demonic Gateway, which out of all the toolkit provided, that's incredible value. Like out of all the raids we've done over 3 years, I know one spell we make full value out of, no matter what the fight is Demonic Gateway and Hellstones. Hellstones and Demonic Gateway is gonna give this a really high placement, if I'm being very honest. Like that is literally raid wipe saving. It's got the damage, so yeah, it's got that going for it. What else? It's got Demonic Port, so it can port itself. It's got pets that can tank, pets that can sleep, pets that can dispel. So you've got literally a button for every situation almost. You can put Burning Rush on and go like 60% faster. Plus, if you're using like any speed gear, You can dot things and run while moving. You can spec into permanent corruption, so you can dot something, take a vacation to, I don't know, like New York, and then like that dude over in like Scotland is still rotting from your corruption. Like it's pretty cool. Um, I think it has to get high A or low S, maybe even high S. Maybe I'm being ungenerous to it. What are your thoughts though, based on what I said?
So, if I may add one thing, you mentioned about the pets. There have been times that I've played with warlocks
Mm-hmm.
and our tank, like, I don't heal the tank in time and he dies. Our warlock would quickly be able to pull out a Voidwalker and buy us enough time to get the party back in order and keep things going. Warlocks are extremely useful with kit. Even if their DPS is not super stellar, it's still nice to be able to have the consistent damage on. You can put all your dots on and then, focus on doing mechanics if you need to move around or whatever. Affliction Warlock, I feel, is high A. I wouldn't put it above Ellie Shaman, but I would put it above Enhance.
Yeah. Okay. For affliction, yes. Well, might have a different POV with Destro and Demo, but yeah, I would agree with that. For sure. Yeah. That does seem right, to be honest with you. For affliction's case, sure.
Okay. Next is going to be Demonology Warlock. What are your thoughts?
So it's got the same utility as affliction. It's extremely strong. The whole point of Demo is summoning pets, imps. Its AoE is slightly behind affliction. Actually, no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Its AoE is stronger than affliction. Its single target is stronger than affliction. Plus everything else we just talked about with affliction, um, we place it higher than affliction. What is your POV on that basically? Yeah.
Um, I mean, if you can get imps to like wild imps to spawn and stuff like that, AoE is pretty good. Imps is always fun. I feel like I feel like Demonology has always been one of the stronger specs for Warlock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially with the pets, just the consistent damage being able to be output, as well as the typical output of like the kit. I'd feel like it either has to be high A or very low S tier.
So here's the thing. I'm looking at Survival Hunter right now, and I know Demo does more damage in all situations than a Survival and provides more utility. So I think it has to go above Survival. Like that does not sit right at all. Thinking about how it does everything better than a hunter in all situations, but it would be lower. I honestly think it has to go behind Arcane Mage.
I agree.
Yep. Just feels
Yeah,
really weird not to have it like that. Yeah.
that's one thing. I hopefully you can elaborate on feeling this way. Are you gonna agree with me on feeling this way too? Sometimes I'll focus on just like the class that we're dealing with and not paying attention to the neighbors, and it's like as soon as you notice a neighbor, it's like, oh crap, like you're actually better than your neighbor or you're worse, and it causes you to reconsider a little bit.
I mean, no, that's literally what's happening to me tonight. Like I'm looking at the neighbors, and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. The neighbors is helping me figure out where the other classes should go. So, yeah,
Yeah, we're working on a big puzzle over here.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Last warlock spec that we have is destruction. What are your thoughts on destruction?
So Destro was like my main for raiding back in Dragonflight. Definitely better single target. Um, Probably toe to toe with Demo for AOE. Probably slightly behind. You can argue it. I'll leave that one to people. It just goes. I would say it's like the same thing as Demo in terms of utility, but Demo is technically more consistent. I would just place it behind Demo, because it's again better than Survival Hunter. So yeah, behind Demo for
I,
sure.
I feel like the damage is definitely better in Affliction, so I'll agree with that front.
Hmm.
Kit being a warlock kit, typical. Um, yeah, you think behind Demo?
Yeah, definitely behind. Like single target is ahead, but like Demo's more consistent, which I like. Um, I think Demo just pulls ahead, but yeah, like they're very close. So yeah.
All right, so we're on the last class. This is one that we've gotten some flack for in the past for prior tier lists that people weren't happy where things were placed. The good news is warriors have been buffed. They were incredible in Shadowlands, pretty much shit in Dragonflight, and now, from what I'm seeing, they're pretty incredible again. Druidman will start off with Arms Warrior. What are your thoughts?
Arms is pretty decent now. It's definitely not Rep Pally Windwalker Monk strong. It's slightly above Boomkin. Can pull almost like 2k for those interested. AoE is kind of meh. You can like put bleeds on everything, but it's kind of meh compared to its counterpart Fury, which we'll get into obviously. Utility wise, it's got Battle Shout. It can get Commanding Shout. It's got Intervene, which really you don't really have much situations where that's useful, but it's there if you want to use it. You have a fear that can fear 5 targets, which is, I wish it feared everything, to be honest. Heroically, 2 charges. Or is it 1 charge? I really can't remember. I think it's 1, but yeah. It's okay. So like, in terms of its toolkit though, it's definitely behind what a druid can do. No battle res, no healing. So it's definitely better than a fire mage. In terms of damage, I would say high B or low A, because it does offer some stuff for the raid. Battle Shout, which is cool. What else can it do? Oh, it has Die by the Sword's Arms, which is like 100% parry. Cool if you're like tanking for a few seconds for whatever reason. It can taunt. It can go into D-stance for like some extra mitigation. What else can it do? It can ignore pain, which basically helps like mitigate more damage, which you don't really need that as arms if your focus is damage, but for dungeons, sure, why not? But it's okay, it's mid. So high B, low A. I mean,
I
I would
I'd say
yeah.
high B.
Yeah, high B. Now the question is behind Fire Mage or above, because Mage also has a lot more utility. So
I feel like Mage, Fire Mage, besides providing a raid wide buff, just like what Warrior does, um, I mean, this is gonna sound so stupid. At least Mage can make food.
oh my
um,
god, that's funny.
but I feel like
It's a hard one, huh?
they're almost exactly the same in terms of output.
Yeah, I would honestly just, you know what? Thinking about more like the gameplay now, I ran like a dungeon in my head right there. I think the Fire Mage is still preferred over the Warrior. Like the Mage can blink away. He's got Ice Block. He's got more
You
ways
got
of
like
dealing with
flame,
him.
fire strike. I think it's called the
Flame Strike, you mean? But
like
yes, it's
flame strike. Yeah,
it's more
sorry.
AOE technically, even though it's not that great. But yeah, it's more AOE. Just behind Fire Mage, honestly. I can't see Arms being better. Yeah, why not?
All right, this one's a fan favorite of a lot of people. Fury Warrior. What's your thoughts?
So Fury, Fury is like really interesting. It requires a bucket load of haste. Like at max, you go haste mastery, right? Because the whole idea of Fury, you want to rampage as much as possible, which costs like 90 rage, or is it 85? So you need a lot of haste and a lot of mastery. So when you're in rampage, in rage, I mean rather, you're doing more damage. But we don't really get mastery gear at this level, so that's kind of meh. And you can't really get bucket loads of haste and haste talents that we get later down. It's kind of like okay again, like arms. Arms is better though for single target, just to be clear, like way better. AOE Fury though is like I was about to say god tier, but it's not really god tier. But it is insane. It's as insane as like a Brewmaster Monk's AOE, but probably more because Fury Warrior wears two handers, and uses the same trinkets as like Brewmaster. But I would say single target behind arms. AOE is up there for S tier. Toolkit's kind of like meh, hence why we placed arms behind Fire Mage. Um, Only because its damage is really good in AoE, it could earn a place above arms, but I don't think it's going above mage. I'm just being honest. Oh, and it has self healing. I'm sorry to say. I know arms does with impending victory, but Fury can pop in frenzy regen, no, in rage regeneration, and then they can blood first and heal themselves. So it kind of, and it has way more sustainability than arms. Like you can literally spam Woven with life stealing or Crusader and do a raid. Like certain bosses with like ads, you can do them. So I don't know, just toe to toe with arms, because obviously we're accounting for like all variables. I would say Fury probably pulls ahead, so behind Fire Mage. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Fury's Fury's always been the better of the two. Obviously, Warrior Kit is still going to be Warrior Kit regardless of the spec, but it's still not as incredible as a Fire Mage. Now, granted, there are some items that you can get to make Fury Warrior just unreal. It would be S tier, getting procs with Whirlwind all the time or whatnot. But the thing is, this is going just on a general guide, so as a general stance without super OP stuff and whatever, it's gonna stay. It's the better half of arms, but not A tier, not S tier.
Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
last one. We finally made it. Woohoo!
Woohoo.
Prop. Listen to me. Prot Warrior. All right, what are your thoughts on Prot Warrior?
So Prot Warrior is more of the okay. It's better than Blood DK, but in terms of compared to the other tanks, it's definitely more underwhelming. Its self-sustainability against a raid boss or any hard-hitting single target is much less. It does better in AoE. Can heal more in AoE. Get like refresh victory rush procs. Does more AoE damage. Single target damage is really bad. I think the single target damage is actually worse than the Blood DK. Blood DK actually has a button you can press like every global cooldown, almost every global cooldown with full gear. Prop Pally literally just shield slams, thunderclap, and you don't even spend your rage on revenge because you want to save your rage for either a shield block or a ignore pain if you need it for like being defensive. It's really boring, in my opinion. It's so boring. So the damage is worse than the Blood DK. It's more tanky in terms of upfront physical damage. It's lacking the talents to do decent against spell damage. So Blood DK is better in terms of like its tankiness against spell damage. Um, and its utility is kind of meh, like Battle Shout. Commanding Shout is like whatever. It's 10% extra health on a 3-minute cooldown. It's like honestly, I'd prefer Blood DK. No, I prefer the Prot Warrior, but if it's like a really heavy physical damage fight. But like generally, right? Because I keep forgetting. Generally speaking, yeah, I would take the Prot Warrior generally more times than I would take the Blood DK. But in terms of its placement, I would say low B. It's like meh. I would even argue high A. Sorry, what am I saying? Low B or high C. It's like it's not all that to be honest. Like yeah.
Um, I feel like Prot Warrior is really good when it has all its like damage absorptions and stuff like that to help mitigate damage. Um, I feel like it does really good with actually tanking. It doesn't really provide too. I mean, it's a warrior. It provides as much as a warrior does with kit, but Prot Warrior also doesn't have too many. It has a couple oh shit buttons, and I think that's a big plus to it. Hmm.
The thing is, it has Last Stand, which is like 30% more health. You can spec into Shield Wall, but it's a 3.5 minute cooldown for a 40% damage reduction. And if you're actually like specking like to be a better like tank, you actually don't even take it at this level because like there's later talents that reduce the cooldown of it and make it more viable. We don't get those, so like it's even like a yeah. It's like somewhat above Blood DK, but then I'm hesitant, so that's why I'm opting for a high C, low B. Um, Again, and then also like when you're fighting a boss that doesn't do melee damage, my main button, which is shield block, does nothing. Like I have spell reflect, I can ignore pain, sure, but it's like a 2 button class, like thunderclap and shield slam, and occasionally when you dodge or parry, you get a free revenge, which you don't really press unless you get the free proc because it costs too much rage. Um, yeah, it's kind of I don't know, it's a weird one. Um, so yeah, high C or low B, definitely not better than the Holy Pally. It's like almost similar in a way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I know some people have like high hopes for Prot Warrior, but when it comes to the tankiness as well, there are other classes that do it better. Um, Obviously, like every every tank has its own high pick that or its own like specificity that it does its own thing. Prot Warrior is more of like the absorb and all, and taking reduced damage. But other than that, I can't see it being like I can see it being above Holy Paladin,
Yeah.
but I can't see it being higher than anything else.
So in terms of its functionality, like it does tanking better than a Holy Pally does healing, but Holy Pally does have a way better toolkit. Um, and because we're accounting for all these other general variables, I think Holy Pally slightly pulls ahead. Um, yeah.
Look at it this way.
hmm
This hmm, never mind. I was gonna say something that's wrong.
Oh, good. So what do you think?
I I think it should be in B tier, and I think it should be. I'd say it's on par with Assassination Rogue for usefulness.
Yeah, I can work with that. That works. Why not? Cool.
All right,
And we're
shit.
done. Holy moly, we're done.